Hello, welcome to the live reality game podcast. My name is Steven, and it is the finale of Surviving Bloomington Order versus Chaos. And it's been a long season, but there's no way I could have done this alone. So joining with me is my guest host, the king of Surviving Bloomington himself. At least he has the crown to prove it. We have
Yes.
Drew. Drew, how are you doing?
Steven, I didn't realize I was a guest host. I thought I was a permanent established
Sorry,
member
for
of this
permanent
panel.
establishment host who's alphabetically before me in the list. You're correct.
But yes, I should have made my little subtitle thing King Drew. I have the immunity idol to prove it. But it is great to be back discussing the finale. We will get into the highs and lows of all of that with my journey, as well as the journeys of our two guests this week. We have Matt, or as we have come to know him this season, Daddy Matt. And we have, spoiler alert, the winner of Surviving Bloomington Season 6. We have Rachel. Let's start with Daddy Matt. Daddy Matt, how are you doing?
I am great. Just came off 4th of July, woohoo, fireworks and all that good stuff. Was just out back in Bloomington for season 7, helping with prod. So that was really special to be there, welcome the new crop of people. I know from my experience, it was really cool to have past players there kind of supporting us through our journey. So it was really nice to pay that back. Yeah.
Rachel, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I wish I could have been at Bloomington, but my husband had to have shoulder surgery, and so he's kind of useless right now. I cannot really leave him alone. But other than that, it's been a good summer.
Fantastic. Well, like we usually do with our guests, before we dive into the episode at hand, this finale episode, we kind of want to discuss your journeys, how you're feeling about the season as a whole. Rachel, what was this like for you, kind of watching back the whole season unfold, knowing that it ultimately ends in your victory? How's this experience been for you?
It's been so fun to see just how Casey has woven all the stories together in a cohesive adventure, if you will. And I think the thing that stood out to me watching is just how much luck went into each episode. Not to negate my game at all, but there were so many points where I don't think I realized how close things could have changed. There were just so many points. Yep, should have gone there, should have gone there, could have gone there. And so that gives me perspective, because I think a lot of us, we put so much pressure on ourselves on these games, and we think, well, if I do A, B, and C, then I will get to the end and I will win. And that's just not true. And we've seen that, especially in the seasons. People were playing phenomenal games, and just the one thing went wrong and it didn't work out. And in my case, the one thing went right and it worked out. But it's just, I think it gives me freedom if I ever do another game, and hopefully other people, if they're playing the games, is like, sometimes you just play your heart out, and hopefully the things fall as they will. But if it doesn't, don't just beat yourself up, because I would get so hard on myself in other experiences where it just didn't go, and I would replay it over and over and over again, thinking, what could I have done? And the reality is there was often not much I could have done differently. It just didn't fall that way. So that's been interesting. I think that has really been clear watching for me.
Matt, I'm curious to hear what your take is of just kind of looking at the season as a whole. Because I love about your game is you are scrapping the entire time. You have to fight from round to round, especially in the merge, because you just have endless adversity against you. What's the experience been like for you?
It was really funny to watch it back, because you see kind of a bird's eye of everyone's game happening at the same time. It's like, oh, I didn't realize this was going on, and that tug and pull and all the factors that go into it. For me, this was my second LRG and my first Survivor LRG. So I didn't really go in well prepared. So I don't share this with many people, but this game was kind of part of a mental health journey for me. I've heard other people who are of a certain age, or like Rachel and I are parents, we get so bogged down in we're someone's parent, we're someone's spouse, right? Or even we're someone's kid, and it's really a unique opportunity to be like you. And for me, I was coming out of my kids are getting older, and I'm like, oh, like I get to do this for myself, and this is how people see me, and oh, this is how I'm perceived. So it was a really cool journey to see what I was capable of on my own, and then people's perceptions of me or how I was edited.
Yeah, I think for me also, like watching this back, it's so interesting because when you're in these games, you have this perception of like, this is where I stand in the group. This is what's happening in the game from my perspective. And then like, even for me, I come on this podcast, I'm like, yeah, from my perspective, this is what's going on. And the guests are like, well, no, that's not correct. And I'm like, oh, it's so interesting to watch these things and find out that like your perception is not always exactly what's going on.
Well, like any of these games, you have X different people, X different storylines. Like Casey's going to do the best he can to weave them all together in narrative, but at the end of the day, there's one winner, and that's Rachel. And we are going to see hers going to shine through the most, though all of us have our moments to shine. For instance, my shoes, for instance, got their own 2 scenes.
Let's talk about the game a little bit. Let's start with we come into the game, we get divided into these teams. We find out that the theme of the season is order versus chaos. Matt, how did you feel about the order team? Talk to us about that first day, briefly summarizing what your experience was like on that original order tribe.
And I'd like to note, Matt is wearing blue to represent the Order tribe, which is so much more than Rachel, who is not wearing red right now.
Yeah,
so
me and Rachel are like,
superior.
we hate chaos.
I don't look good in red. Sorry.
Well, I was thankful to be part of order. I don't know if I'm naturally orderly, right? I do like a little bit of chaos, but to me, it felt like a security blanket. Like, okay, these players are going to be kind of like systematic. There's not going to be a lot of surprises. I think if I had started on the chaos tribe, my stomach would be in knots. I'd be like super paranoid. So I think that helped me a little bit. Like we shared, like we were very orderly about things. We would like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to, when it was time to talk about voting somebody out, we like sat down, we talked about our feelings, like, okay, now we're going to go off and talk. So it made me have a greater sense of security to start out, even though we were like losing everything.
Yeah. And how were those first few votes for you on order?
For me personally, the first one was really hard. Nina was probably going to be my number one. Like she was the person that I was closest to, and then lobbed off. And I attribute that to John, right? He had such pull over the tribe. This is my perception. Like it was going to be Riley, and then John wanted something else, and Nina went. And if Nina had not gone, I think in my mind, I was looking towards like me, Nina, Mackenzie, and Alex. Those probably would have been my folks. But with Nina gone, it kind of changed that trajectory for me.
So, yeah. I have 3 things that are on my mind. Drew, I need you to help me confirm this. Is Matt the only person in our season to successfully get both his bounties?
I didn't track bounties.
I know, but I'm leaning towards yes. I think, Matt, you might have been the only person to successfully have capitalized on both your bounties in the season.
I think that sounds true to me.
Yeah. And then Casey, okay, yeah. So
Casey
is listening. Matt, you were the bounty hunter this season. Did you realize that?
Yeah. We were talking about luck. I feel like the luckiest player, like swaps happen when I need to, and then like a little bit of opportunity, like my bounties names came in when I needed them, and I took advantage of that. And probably, like, especially for Matt at Merge, like I did not want him to go. I actually wanted to go far with Matt, but he was my bounty, and it looked like the vote was going that way. So I was like,
interesting that you were the one who threw his name out.
Drew, we're talking about perception, boy. We'll go there later. We'll go there later.
Question number 2 that's burning on my mind. One thing I love about this episode is we get to see everyone's kind of like intro packages all over again, like those initial confessionals and what was going through their mind. And it struck me when I saw yours, Matt, because you're like, like you basically said, like, I'm here to play an orderly game. I'm going to take this tribe. I'm going to get it fashion together. And this is the tribe, the alliances that I'm going to go to the end with, which makes so much more sense why like you're so distraught in the Merge. Like, this is not my plan. This is not what I wanted. But then I love about your opening confessional to say, if that doesn't work, well, then I'm just going to have to kind of be, in other words, a little bit chaotic. And I feel like you've proven yourself to have the most chaotic potential this season, whether we know it or not. What do you think?
I played a lot more chaotically than I thought I was going to, but I will say it was probably because I was at very close to going several times that, and we can talk more about this, but my thought was like, everyone wants me out. Well, I'm going to like this match. And like, I just want to see everything burn around me. And then when the smoke clears, maybe I have a path forward. So that was part of the chaos, was like, hopefully things would burn around me and then I could somehow get to the end.
Yeah, you did what you should have done. Like, you played the game that you had to play to stay in the game, and I love it. I love the mess.
The ranch dressing gambit is like, I'm just still heartbroken there's no footage over of the details of that, but maybe that's for the best. I don't know.
You mean like when my tribe abandoned me and I was
in the rain alone? I know.
Mind you, Matt, we pulled like 8 production members to be like, "Hey, Matt's dying. Can you please go check on him?" And they're like, "Yeah."
No, I appreciate that. Yes, they did do that. They were looking out for me.
Last question. I promise that you mentioned, Alex and Nina being key players. We voted all them out. Whoops. If the Order Tribe had gone to the Tribal Council, who would you have wanted to target?
If we had gone to another one?
Yes, we go to our 4th one in a row.
I really think it would have been me. Now, I don't know where we would have, where votes would have gone, but I think I was probably next on the pecking order, just where alliances were. There's a chance that, like, I felt like Mackenzie and John had a pretty strong pull on the game, but it seemed like they were closely aligned with Jamie, and then like you and Steven and Matt had something. I think I was the odd man out. I don't think I would have survived.
Yeah, Steven, what are your thoughts on what would have happened?
It all depends on a lot of things. You might have been a person I was willing to push for, because we had our text lines, but I was like, how much is this real? I don't know. If I never really sat down with Mackenzie to talk about it, maybe that would have happened at that next round. If like, a lot of it depends on where John and Mackenzie looked to target. That would have really shaped things and like how people reacted. Because I think there is a non-zero world where I go to you and little Matt and say, okay, we can't, if we vote out one of the 3 of us and we lose another again, we're gonna go, we need to force a tie here. I might have been like desperate enough to come to you and try to pitch that.
Meanwhile, Rachel and I are over on Chaos, thriving in our
tribe.
Yeah. Rachel, what was that first day like for you? I know you and I spent a decent amount of time together on that day.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for those. Once I found the one pouch, I was going nuts looking for whatever I could, because I, at the time, had assumed everyone's probably finding things because I'm on a chaotic tribe. But then the problem was I was also losing them while using the bathroom.
I wanted to bring that up.
Oh, I found something. No, I lost something. No, I found something. My big thing was just not to be on the bottom, because I thought luck would run out and we would head home. And knowing how things were brewing, in my mind, I had seen Drew, Brady, Danny as a 3. I saw me and Kim together. And so then I was trying to figure out, how am I going to make sure I'm in a majority? But if not, I'm going to find these keys so that I can be ready if something goes crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was seeing things too. I think I've said this before on here, where in my mind, it was like me, Brady, and Danny, and then Rachel, Kim, and Danny. So we're connected through Danny. And I think there were times that the 5 of us had conversations, like when you and Kim had come into the tent, asking me and Brady if we had heard your name come up. Like, we were in conversations, and then Tyler was connected to us as well. So in my mind, I don't know if you agree with this or not. The question's been asked on a couple of these podcasts. If Chaos had to go to a tribal, who would go? In my mind, just looking at how the relationships were laid out, it was either Seth, Melanie, or Marshawn, but probably Marshawn.
Yeah, I think Marshawn. I think we had already seen him openly look Like we're in the tent and the window's down and he's just
Yeah,
saying
I remember that.
titles and we're like, what is happening? It's such a good Survivor moment. But and because it had already come out that Marshawn had stirred the pot, it was just a little too early to stir. And so my hope would be that would have been the vote, because I would have wanted to eliminate someone that was putting my name out there.
Yeah. Anything else to talk about before we get to the tribe swap? Anything either of you? Stories? Anything?
Well, this was just something. This is like tribe swap, but it made me think. When I got swapped to red, Rachel, I heard that you lost your key. I was out in the red poop field, like I was looking for a mountain toilet, trying to find that freaking key. I forgot about that.
I know. I had no idea that Danny and Kim and people were actually looking, and it was the thing that was hard is they were in those burlap pouches, but this was loose because I don't know why. And just lesson learned: always have pockets in your leggings. And I should have just peed. Like I'd never gone to the bathroom in the woods at all, and so I was just so flustered that I thought I was getting ready to do my business, and then I see like a little bit of red. I'm like, God! I pull my pants up and I run down further the hill, do my business, and then when I'm pulling my pants up, I'm like, wait, where's the key? And Casey would not replace it. Would not replace that key. So it's somewhere out there.
It's a balance of karma. They're like, well, Rachel's gonna win, so we need to throw away one of her keys real quick.
Oh my word!
We need to maximize the adversity she faces this season.
Right.
Yeah.
No, Rachel probably threw away that key. She was like, no, I just want to seem like I'm having so many issues.
So people feel bad for me more.
Right. So we get to this tribe swap. We get into 3 tribes of 5, and we go home that night not knowing it'll be a triple tribal. And the 2 of you end up on the same tribe together. Talk to us about
how much we suffered that night, Rachel.
Oh, no, you weren't. Sorry, that was the second swap. I'm sorry. Rachel and Steven were together. Rachel, let's talk about your emotional journey within that 10-minute window.
I think my face tells it all in those scenes. I mean, I was pretty upset with Casey. Because like I said, I was like, I asked what the parameters were of this game before I signed up in my interview, and this is what was promised. Because again, I'm not an outdoors person. I'm not a camp person. I didn't want to be laying in the ticks that were everywhere, apparently. But then, of course, the moment that air mattress, man, that was probably the best night's sleep we'd ever had.
You could tell Casey was relishing every moment of your suffering before he dropped. Like, this is like you missing the Survivor lottery.
It was and I remember like thinking, what if people notice that my hair is flatter and yesterday it was curled? Will people notice? No, they won't.
Casey's saying that swap truce was specifically planned for Rachel, so her drawing the Eel Rocket made me light up. I was ready to soak it up.
Oh, it was.
So what I remember about that night, Rachel, is kind of there's John, Matt, and I, and you and Melanie both are kind of, I realized later, I'm like, oh, they're kind of giving us their sales pitch right now. I'm just like why we should keep one over the other. Because like at one point, Melanie goes to shower and like you start saying, here's what you have to know about Melanie.
Here's everything. Yeah, we were the minority, even though I knew John from a previous game, but we were both out early. It didn't really go anywhere. I didn't have time to test trust or friendship. And so I was like, okay, I do have this guy that I know, but I'm not going to bank on that. I need to make sure I'm giving everything I can to show these people that I'm willing. So I made sure to pitch. I'm on the bottom. It helped that my name had went out and read because I could use a lot of truth and just try to spin it as much as I could to show I'm willing to play. These people don't want to play with me. I'll play with you, and if we make it to the merge, we can really get some work done.
Because I turned to Little Matt and John at one point when both of you weren't there and saying, hey, where you're leaning. And they're like saying, well, we're leaning with Rachel right now. I was like, okay, good to know. So it was working at that point.
Yeah, and I think it helped because Melanie, I think it was in the middle of the night. It was 4 a.m. She was whispering and talking. I knew that you guys would probably overhear some. It just seemed that it's just the right small things. Maybe you didn't, or maybe I used it. Maybe I said, hey, she was up all night talking to me. Like, you don't want her. But, and then the other thing that helped is, if I'm not jumping ahead too much, Drew, you had said, like, there's keys everywhere.
Yeah, so you guys had known. Yeah, you guys had voted out Melanie and then come in for the next challenge. And they were like, it's a double tribal. And I leaned over and was like, Rachel, you have to find things. I need you to stay in. Please find things.
But that was such a morale boost because my name had been out there and it had never been tested who was really on my side. Just knowing that you specifically, I had seen you not connected with me. I had seen you so tied with other people at that point in the game. I was like, man, he really cares. Like, he wants me to get through this. And that kind of gave me the little push to keep looking and keep fighting.
On the inside, I'm a hero.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Matt, you moved into Red Camp with Mackenzie, Danny, Kim, and Marshawn. Talk to us about that experience for you.
I was like, well, I'm out. And then I think that first challenge, right? It was round board balancing a ball, right? Mm-hmm. My ball was just everywhere, and I was like, "Oh man, this is like the worst. Like, I can't win this." I think I said in there, like, I stepped down because we were going to get close to 2 balls, and there was no way I was going to be able to do that. So I just picked up kind of socially that from competitions that Kim and Drew were kind of leaders of the Red Tribe, or that's the vibe I got. And I was like, I'm gonna go butter up Kim. Like, try to get in good with her. Mackenzie won, and at that point in the game, like, I really wanted to. I felt I was working strongly with her that we could hopefully both survive this. She got immunity, and I was like, oh man, this is even harder for me. And then there was Banana Gate, and Mackenzie and I were like, hell yeah, this might be our chance to stay. Thank you, Drew, for that.
Yeah, I feel I have things to say about Banana Gate once you're done talking about your tribe.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
So Banana Gate, I feel like I've gotten a bad rap for Banana Gate because that's...
Drew, it wasn't Banana Gate. There were other things that gave you... No.
No, here's what I was going to say. I got nominated for Villain of the Year for the LRG Awards, and I'm like, outside of Banana Gate and Fate crying to Jamie, literally the rest of my game was me being a really loyal ally and then getting betrayed at the very end.
Are we playing the same game, Drew? How come you're talking about wanting a villain edit the whole time? You would be like, "Oh, I'm just so villainous."
It was Banana Gate.
But I think, Drew, you would just call it out. Not that this is really villainous, but in your confessionals, while I agree you were loyal to the people you were loyal to, in your confessionals, you just drop it.
Yeah.
Makes you have that top villain.
Maybe some call it a villain, some call it a realist anti-hero, you know?
Boy, you were more concerned about what penmanship you were like, how am I going to murder this person?
You know what? That was a strategy too, because I was like, whenever I wrote in cursive, I wanted people to know it was my vote. But when I wanted to hide my vote, I didn't write in cursive. And so anytime I'd have a vote come out that was in cursive, I would say like, oh, that's my vote to everyone so people would know which ones were mine. Did that have any effect on the game? Absolutely not. But
it could have.
I digress. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun being a menace. I'll say I was a menace, not a villain.
Okay, fair.
Well, now here I am hoping that we have a hero versus anti-hero season and let people figure out what that is someday.
That'd be hilarious. Matt, we would be on the same team for that one.
That would be fun.
But yeah, so we go through the Marshawn vote. and then we get to this tug of war challenge, and we have arguably one of Rachel's biggest moves of the game, with taking you out, Steven. Rachel, talk to us about that round.
I thought you'd say like Rachel, like with her in the competition, but yes, I'll own that me going out as Rachel's biggest move. I'm okay with that.
I think it was Rachel's second biggest move, arguably.
He's writing that
Giving
down.
inspiration where we go.
See you guys on All Stars, I guess. No.
The only thing I really wanted, I wanted John to give me the keys. And I can't remember if that's in the episode as much or not, but I keep hounding him like, let me have this. Like, why don't you give me your keys? So then I had to go pitch it a different way to people, but that was huge. And what was crazy is little Matt would go to me and be like, it's you. I mean, he would just, maybe he didn't say it, but his eyes did. And so
little Matt
it was
basically
really
told
hard. And I thought, like, Steven was so honest. And then I trust John. And so it was a really hard to weigh exactly what was going on. And it shocked me, too, that I wonder what would have happened had we told little Matt. If that would have, because obviously that was burnt. And I really liked little Matt, and I could have seen going further with him in the game. But then later on, there wasn't a big motive for me to keep him, because how could he trust me anyway?
From when I've reached out and talked to little Matt some about this, it's not a clear answer what he would have done. I think there's a high likelihood that, he like, I have to play my shot in the dark that round. But like, he votes with you. I think it could have easily leaned that way, given that, like, once he's like, oh, they're playing an extra vote, so this is what it is. But I remember being so frustrated that round, because little Matt was like, Steven, I can't talk to Rachel anymore. I can't lie to her much. I'm like, okay, so I go, he's like, Rachel, Matt's on the fence. I'm not sure. I'll work on him. I'm like, Matt, no, you're killing me here.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, Rachel's not buying this for many reasons.
No, and I think I could see how loyal ultimately you were to Matt and John, and Matt to you and John, that I realized, like, it's John and these keys or I'm gone. So
yeah. I mean, I had a conversation with Matt early in the round where I kind of said, like, okay, where should we go? And then, like, had little Matt said, let's go with Rachel, I would have rolled with that. And like, then like, all right, here's what we're doing, voting John. And when you say, can I have your key? I'm like, sure. If you vote me out with it, then that'll look stupid, but so it goes. But then versus when you ask for my key later on, I'm like, no, sorry, I'll think about it.
Fair.
Yeah.
Sorry,
but at least I could be in your little vote montage.
Yes!
At the end of the season.
That was so cool. And I hadn't realized how often I voted correctly until that montage. I was like, oh, that's pretty good.
So you take out Steven. Meanwhile, Daddy Matt, what would have happened had you guys not been given a win in Tug of War?
Dude, this is John and Mackenzie's bond. I think I want to ask John this, and maybe someone knows the answer. But like in Tug of War, it seemed like he threw it to us, in my opinion, to potentially save Mackenzie and maybe
Both
a little bit me.
But
Both
of you.
I think it was, from my understanding, it was one to save both of you. In my discussions with John, he said both of you, but also to punish the four of us on blue.
Yeah. No, from my talk with John, we were like, hey, if we had to send another tribal council, let's protect the remaining order members, and we can easily send that blue tribe back because there's no order people there. Jamie's gone. So it's better for our game to make sure that Mackenzie and Matt are safe.
Brilliant move, by the way.
Yeah.
You didn't feel about that way at the time, and I apologize for it, but
it
didn't help me either.
It's the game. But Matt, what happens if you guys lose that challenge?
I go home. Once Marshawn was gone, which I want to say Marshawn was the person I was most interested from Chaos Tribe working with. His energy, I was like, I call him my spirit animal. I was like, yes, I want to work with you. You are so wild and energetic, but it was him or me in that situation. I had started being like, to Kim, I was like, ooh, watch out, Mackenzie and Danny, they're always in that tent, they're getting close. And then to Danny, I'd be like, watch out, Mackenzie and Kim, they're really getting close. And like what I hear is like they started like talking, and so like there would have been like Matt's trying to put us all against each other. I would have been out. So again, luck. Yeah.
Or skill.
Right. So we get through this double tribal, we get to the second tribe swap, which none of us believed in the real time. I remember when he was like, drop your buffs, the 10 of us were like, let's go. We made merge, and he's like, we're going into a tribe swap, and we're all like, haha, Casey, you're so funny. But no, we went into 2 new tribes. It ends up basically being the 5 men versus the 4 women and Danny. And that was hilarious. Fun eating challenge, fun for some, maybe less fun for others. I feel like we got maybe some unequal difficulties in rounds because some people didn't even get to use their hands, if I remember correctly, Matt.
Yeah, Rachel and I were the last ones to go. We were versus each other, and we couldn't use our hands on the pineapple, olive, jalapenos.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So we go back onto our teams. Matt, is there anything of interest that you remember from our team? I don't think there was anything super interesting from my perspective that I remember, other than finding out about the Little Matt and John situation and trying to be like, okay, well, if we need to vote, the 4 of us can just vote out John. Obviously, I didn't know that John and Tyler were brothers, but I was like, well, because I felt okay about you. I feel like you and I didn't talk that much strategy. We had a lot of personal conversations, but not strategy talks. I don't know. What was your perception of that evening and that group?
Yeah, in this cast, there were a lot of I had, and I imagine others did, like really bonding conversations that I hadn't had in my previous LRG and come to find other LRGs that I played. So it was really special to me. And there was a conversation back at the Mask tribe that really drew me to Drew. That's where I felt like I connected to you personally. And you had like I wouldn't say this publicly, but like have a little soft spot in my heart for you. Okay.
Yeah, I know. We love fighting with each other. For anybody watching, being like, oh, they're still bitter. I mean, we're bitter in the game. That's it.
Yeah, we have a lot of love for each other, but we like to fight. So that was good. That was really bonding. But I was very weary of you and Tyler. I wanted to stick to order. I wanted one of you out. So I probably would have had I was pretty loyal to John at that point. I would have had a hard time voting him out. Yeah,
I don't think that would have been able to happen, because I think what happens in that situation, if I'm like, hey guys, let's vote John out, you and Tyler are both probably like, no. And I'm like, cool, let's vote out Little Matt instead.
Yeah, that would have been a misstep. I probably would have gone for you.
Yeah, that would have been bad. I don't think Tyler would have let me be voted out there, but maybe so. But that, I don't know. That's my perception on, if we had to vote that round, it probably would have been either me or Little Matt going out.
I could see that happening. Yes.
Yeah. Anything else from that night? I do recall when we woke up that morning, we somehow broke our tent and it was leaking. And this is not a spoiler. Casey didn't realize that tent was broken. So in season 7 filming, the blue team's like opening their tent and they're like, oh, it's broken. And we're like, oh, that was us. We did that. So we had to fix that real quick. So that was fun. Yeah, Rachel, meanwhile, what was going on over at Red?
I think we had all agreed to just have a good night, connect, bonded. Our tent was flawless and dry, despite the rain. I just want to say it was way better than Blue's ever was. But I just remember we just talked and we connected and we kind of said, more or less, let's put the game on hold until the morning. We know we're going to have to just do this, but let's just hang. And we did. And it was really fun.
Steven?
So come morning, how's the scramble for you?
I think it came down to Brady or me. And I think Drew's done some pretty extensive research, if I remember, thinking of how it would have been. And it seems like it probably would have been me. I would have still probably tried. I had some keys, I think. So I probably would have still tried to get some keys, see if I could do something. But it wasn't looking good for me based off previous podcast discussion.
Yeah, from my understanding and talking to each of the 5 people on that team, what likely would have happened is Brady at that point had 5 keys and knew that she was the name. She would have played 5 keys. If they don't go off, Brady goes out in a 4-0 vote. If they do go off and Brady's safe, there are 0 votes that count. And on the revote, the plan was for people to vote for Rachel. So Rachel would have probably gone out in a 3-1, unless, Rachel, of course, you had the foresight to play keys on the first round of voting, because you can't play keys on a revote.
Right.
Or vote for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to know, but it would have been a hard uphill battle for sure.
Yeah. Anything, Rachel, that you would like to say about the Kim situation? Because I know it comes up later in the game that really bonded you and Mackenzie.
Yeah. So when just Kim as a person, I think it was said, Jordan said it, like the Kim you saw in real life and in the game, it was the same person. Kim and I are still good friends. I talk to her regularly. And I have so much respect for her, and I'm just so happy that we met, and to see her kind of sacrifice her game, but also to have peace with it. I really think she has peace still with this game that she played, and she should, because she did what was best for her in that moment and what she wanted to do, and she had complete control over that. I will say, you see it in Final Tribal, Mackenzie, you're like, no, she's mine. No, she's mine. So I do remember talking to Mackenzie and saying, listen, Kim's gone. We both felt she was our genuine connection. We've got to look out for each other going into this. We don't know what's happening. And so that did connect us for sure.
And then you massacred her. Let's get into this merge. We get to the merge. We vote Kim onto the jury, which was a very funny round. I don't know if either of you have anything to say about that moment. And then also combined, of course, with Jamie coming back in. Matt, how did you feel about, I guess, the Kim being voted onto the jury and or Jamie coming back?
I was cool with Kim coming back, but everyone was like, we're all going to vote Kim. And I was, like several people, I was like, No, I didn't know about this key bribe thing. Like if Nina had like sent me a bribe, I think she assumed I was going to vote for her. If she had sent me like a bribe and I knew what was going on, I would have been like, get back on here. But I don't know. I wanted to send Marshawn a little note like, hey, thinking of you. I think when I voted for him, I put like a banana peel in there for him for Banana Gate. So that was my reasoning there. And then Jamie coming back, I just love it. I love the narrative and the editing of that and Jamie's redemption. It was a really cool story, and I was excited to see Jamie because I felt an emotional connection to Jamie since day one. Yeah.
And I was not happy that Jamie was going.
Me and you both.
Love the edit for them. Love the story. Beautiful. But Jamie was the one person I had no connection with, no previous conversations. Why in the world would they have my back? How would I connect with them quick enough to have something sustainable long term? And it proved right, because they voted my name over and over and over again. So it was worst case scenario for me.
That's interesting because so Jamie coming back was worse than even if I had come back in the game.
Oh, well, that's another reason I figured I knew you and Jamie were friends. And so you would have probably said, yeah, Rachel totally burnt me. Go get her back. But not that you're a bitter person, but I just was, running through scenarios. Yeah. I think I could have, at least though I had talked to you, and I think I could have I had still some connection with you, that it's still, but yeah, it probably would have not been as great either. But to not have any connection with someone at all, and them to only have possibly negative things in their mind about, going and having to work that hurdle is still harder than working against or someone coming in that at least I would have talked to and they would have known me a little bit.
Yeah, I think had I been come back in the game, considering I went out writing your name down, I wouldn't have felt bitter about that at all and been very open to say, hey, if you're open to it, let's try things around too. The challenge would have been you were working close to John, and John would be the person I'd be like, sorry, I can't do that again.
Right.
I'm a little shy about being voted twice by you now.
It would have been tricky.
Yeah. And likely if I go back in, I go right out where Jamie went out.
Possibly. It's hard to know.
It's hard. It's a hard one. Let's hit on some, I guess, major plot lines for the two of you through the maybe first half of the merge. With Rachel, we see a lot of, well, first of all, apparently Brady is not happy with you coming into the merge. The tea on that, per Brady on the podcast, was because the two of you had heard right before the merge that you were throwing out each other's names. And so Brady was like, I don't mess with people who are throwing out my name. Obviously, we see that's true in the coming episodes with Brady. And then we also see this kind of recurring theme of Rachel being the backup plan. Rachel gets 1 or 2 rogue votes at every tribal council. We see it at the Little Matt vote. We see it at the 3-way tie. We see you get a vote at the Jamie boot. So that's kind of what's going on with you. Talk to us about your game in the first half of the merge.
And that was the day it was just raining.
Rain.
I was so miserable. I didn't even give any good voting confessionals. There were points where I would just hold up the name and put it in. I was pretty bogged down. I was frustrated. I just remember there's a sloping muddy hill, and I was just walking up and down this hill waiting for someone to talk to me, and just seeing like all these other little pockets of people and realizing I really got to shift something because this is not going to work, and I can only be a rogue vote or a backup vote so many times before an advantage gets placed and I go home.
And then with Matt, we kind of see this building of you realizing or feeling like, oh, I'm on the outside. I have to do things to get other people to look at each other instead of looking at me. And that leads to several moments of conflict and confrontation. And scrapping your way through rounds where you know your name is up. Obviously, we see this really culminate when you play the 6 keys to save yourself. And then even moving forward past that, you're like, yeah, I just pulled off this thing, but I have still got to fight. What was it like for you that first half of merge?
Well, under the Danny and I won immunity for that. So I was safe. So my thought was I don't want to get mixed up in all that underneath the tarp. So I think a majority of the time I was holding up a corner. We've talked about this a little bit. My hope was I heard Rachel's and exceptional Matt's name. And that was not what I wanted. So, we talked, Drew, and you asked me what names I had heard, and I said those 2. And I threw out yours and John's, hoping that hey, we're in the merge, let's get these alpha males out, and I want them to go after each other.
Sure.
That was my hope.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, that had kind of the opposite effect, because that was the round that John and I were like, oh, no, our names are out. We have to work together. We don't have the option to go for each other here. Because up until that point, I was actively gunning for John. I mean, I throw a rogue vote on John that round, hoping Little Matt's keys go off, not knowing that Rachel was going to get votes that round. But, yeah, and then after that round, there was a conversation that you and I had with Mackenzie, where we were like, Matt, what names have you heard? And you said, I don't even remember whose name you said. And I was like, who'd you hear it from? You were like, I can't say my sources. And we got into it again. And it was just from that point on, it was just, we're not seeing where each other, we are not going to be able to play together successfully.
And here's why, Drew. Like, people I'm not aligned with, like Drew, are coming up to me like, what names have you heard? And I'm like, oh, this is what I've heard. And you're like, oh, where'd you get it? Well, I'm not telling you where the hell I heard it, because you're going to go off and like spill the tea to everybody else. Like, I'm not giving you that.
If it was one of my allies, absolutely, I would have told them.
So I'm like, none your business, okay? And then we get it. Well,
No, talk about tribal. Let's talk about the double tribal. I love it. I'll just mute myself.
I have issue. You're like all coming at me like, well, you're not telling me where you heard this name from. And then I'm like, well, you're the person that told me exceptional Matt's name. Where did you hear it from? You're like, well, and then Brady's like, well, why are we talking about that time? I'm like, no, it's hypocritical. Like, stop protecting Drew. You know, now I will say, and okay, sorry.
Do it, Casey.
So I still get a little bit heated. Drew, I think you need to get checked for early onset Alzheimer's. Like, your recollection of some of the things that happened or
no,
did
that's
not
true.
happen,
No, that's
pisses
actually
me
true. Because you keep telling me the two things that you keep telling me. Well, the one main thing is that I was the one who threw out Matt's name first. I was one. I genuinely do not recall that having happened, but at this point, it's being reiterated to me so much. I'm like, yeah, I'll accept it. Sure.
Girl, all I'm saying is I heard it from you first. Now, maybe you heard it from somebody else, and I'm like,
but I didn't tell you who it was. So me asking, like I said, you can see in that tribal, there's a point where I'm like, oh, I understand what he's saying now. Let me just be quiet. Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. I think for me, my thing was just like, I was feeling like you weren't being upfront with me, but you felt like by me pointing that out that I was being hypocritical because I wasn't being as upfront with you, which is fair. That's fair.
The shoe fits.
Yeah.
Drew, if you want to replace me with Matt next season for podcasting, I'm here for it. I'm okay.
Oh, that would be hilarious. Hilarious.
Now, when we're talking about the Matt exceptionalism, right? We already talked about, Matt, how you're the only person who executed both your bounties. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the only person who also played 6 keys. I think Brady only played 5, right?
Damn right.
That is correct.
So let's talk about, you assemble the 6 keys. You're the only player to do so. Were you just like, I'm going to use this immediately? Or was it when you heard like, oh, it's a double tribal, I'm going to have to do this because I have no choice? Or when did you think you wanted to play your 6 keys?
I have something to say on this. I would just like to say, every time that I voted for Daddy Matt, I told him he was getting votes. And that is something we had the conversation at camp multiple times. You were like, you know what, Drew, we're not working together, but I respect it. And I'm like, and that's all I care about is that you know that. So great. Anyways.
Am I allowed to cuss on this podcast?
Yes, you can. We can rate. You can cuss as much as you want. We can always rate it.
Okay, I got bitches coming up like, I'm gonna vote you out. So sorry. Can I have your jury vote? Like, I know what the deal is. Like, you're telling me because you want my jury vote. Like, you're not the only one. Same with like poor Matt that was gonna vote. So many of us went to him like, hey, play your keys. Like, we want your jury vote. Anyway, I'm Rachel, this is for you too. I'm pissed. Like, call out Drew and Brady and Tyler as a threesome, and then none of them go home in the double. What's up with that?
Probably because we weren't actually working that closely.
It's probably because Tyler then voted for Brady, and then we proceeded to have the entire second round just being them arguing with each other while everyone else kind of whispering.
What was so funny to me is up until that point, absolutely. But that tribal was the tribal that, 1, Tyler voted for Brady, and 2, I fully flipped away from working with Brady to work with this majority alliance that I thought was happening of like me, Tyler, John, Rachel, and Mackenzie. So in my head, I'm like sitting there the whole time like, this fool, he's going to see in the edit that he has no idea what he's talking about, which is asinine of me, but it was hilarious.
Well, you were the three that I felt the least close to, so I knew I was they were gonna vote me out. So I was like hugging everybody goodbye at camp. I knew I was gonna play my keys there. And Matt, I wouldn't have voted for him, but I needed his key. I only needed the one, so I was like, play your 3 keys. Like I would have liked to have more, but I needed that one. And so then I could feel the whole social dynamic change. And so I knew I was gonna play my keys. I would not have been as bold in tribal council if I did not have that play. Also, I remember trying to gain favor with Rachel when I was like, oh, Jamie voted for you, and that, like, trying to blow everything up. I was hoping that
and I was like, yeah, I know.
I love that whole like segment of that episode because it's like this dramatic loud music with Brady and Tyler yelling at each other, and then it just cuts to Rachel being like, did you vote for me? Matt said you voted for me, but Jamie says they did not.
Yeah, I think at that point Jamie had kept writing my name down, and I was just like, they gotta go. They gotta go. I'm sorry. So that's
T from KC in the chat.
Jamie
Which
has
makes sense.
Jamie has been mad at me as well. Like has
Totally
conveyed their
fair.
anger as well about that.
Totally fair. I would
Yeah.
do that too.
That's very fair. But I think that is what, I mean, Matt, that's what you had to do. I said it earlier in the podcast. Throwing me, Brady, and Tyler under the bus is what you had to do. Not that you were going to go out that round anyway because you were playing 6 keys, but you were looking forward to like, okay, well, what happens after this round? Like, am I really going to let these people just run and vote out everyone that's not them? That's what you had to do. Ratting Jamie out to Rachel, that's what you had to do. It was the optimal move. And honestly, props to you. I think you probably have I would have to pull up my spreadsheet. I think you have the most player of the week points. Because you did what exactly the optimal move almost every single round.
Well, that's very kind of sad. I will say, I think it was either a podcast or maybe I think this is something Rachel said to me at kind of a final 5 was like, did you ever think to like talk to any of us about like what you were going to do and use that? And that's something like looking back in the game, maybe I thought I should have. I don't think I had as strong as go ahead.
I think I sounded like a brat, and of course I don't want to talk to you guys. Like we probably I will say I didn't like how it came off with me saying it at tribal, but I could not understand your game. I still don't think I do. I would try. I would think I'd have a good idea of where you were going to go, what you were going to do, and I could never predict exactly what was going to happen, which I did have a question, and if this is jumping ahead, we can save it.
No, please ask away.
I did want to know if Matt, if you had won immunity instead of Drew, who would you have gone for? Would you have tried to get someone like John out instead? Would you have tried to ruffle, or would you? I mean, Drew just pointed to himself, but I was just curious what you would have tried to do.
It would have been Drew. I thought he was the front runner for winning so much competition. And like I'm seeing what I saw in the episode was, to me, what it feels like is that John and Tyler had kind of convinced the 3 of us that we were their third. I think truly it was Rachel, but I think I saw that from all of us.
Yeah, that was my perception going into the finale is I wanted the final 3 to be myself, John, and either Rachel or Tyler. I reached a point, originally it was me, John, Tyler. Oh, there are a lot of fireworks happening outside my window all of a sudden. Originally I wanted it to be me, John, and Tyler, but I reached a point where I was so fed up with Tyler that I was like, you know what? I don't even care. I would rather it be me, John, and Rachel just to know that Tyler's out of the way. And I think that shows in the episode where I'm like, yeah, me and John, and then one of Rachel or Tyler. I think they did a great job with that.
I have a question for Matt. So we didn't get to see a lot of it. Can you talk us about the ranch dressing escapade you went on?
It wasn't really an escapade, but I will say I was not at my best mental state at that point. After that double tribal, I was cold and tired and pissed off at everybody. And like, I remember sitting there like, I'm over this, and these people that wanted me out. And then they're like, someone should like build a fire. And I thought, I'm like, who's someone? I'm not doing it for you. It's like, I saw go sit in front of the firewood just so like no one builds it. And like, oh, I'm really hungry. We should make some food. I'm like, okay, who's going to do it? I'm not doing it for you. Like, I felt like I was the dad who was like going to do things like for people. And then everyone was voting me out. And I was like, all right, someone go do it. But I remember a conversation there, like we're talking about food and we're talking about whatever bacon that we couldn't.
Well, that's why I was going to bring up Rachel initiated this conversation because we were going to make bacon grilled cheeses. And Rachel was like, I'm not eating that bacon or that cheese. It's been sitting out all day at room temp outside.
Go ahead and get food poisoning and I'll take the crown that way. That was a literal thought. I was like, I guess that's 4 people eating this disgusting grilled cheese. Someone might get sick. That's one less person.
Can you imagine that? Like everyone just gets wiped out, and we're like,
yeah,
like,
it would have been. It was me, Brady, Mackenzie, and John, I believe, that ate the grilled cheeses. So you would have had the 4 of us taken out.
Yeah, you all were like, it's fun, it's vegan.
Yeah, we threw out the real. Right. Yeah, no, we threw out the real bacon because obviously we couldn't eat any more of that. But we're like, oh, there's vegan bacon here, so it's probably shelf stable.
Nasty.
Well,
it's probably my biggest mom moment of the season.
You may have saved their lives.
You're welcome.
Definitely surviving. Yeah, so they were talking, and I just remember no one was eating fruits and vegetables, so I was like, I'm going to eat this stuff and stay healthy. And then I was like, there's this ranch dressing, like I could get. At this point, I was like thinking that narrative that Rachel called me out on at Final 5. I was like, shh, girl, like the outcast narrative I was pushing. I was like, this is Final 7. Like, this is where like dynamic things happen. Like, maybe if I'm so disgusting, so much of an outcast, that they will like go after each other to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not that they don't like me, but they're going to be like, Matt, we're going to fight with each other. That was my thought. So yeah, getting sick. And my first intention was like to be sick so that you guys couldn't leave, because everyone else wanted to leave camp. And so I thought like, oh, I can make them stay. They won't let them split tribes. But then they let, it kind of was fortuitous that they let everybody go but me. Because I remember like thinking like, okay, I got 24 hours. Like, I'm going to spend this hour looking, this hour doing this hour doing that.
And we slept well. Yeah, like we were actively concerned.
In the dry red tent.
Yeah, no, we definitely went out of our way to find production members to like check in on you regularly, but we slept well. Rachel, do you remember Tyler fell asleep like way before the rest of us, and then he just like screamed and sat up in the middle of the night, and we were all like, okay.
That was so funny.
Comment from Casey. If 4 of my final 7 got food poisoning, I would have been like, y'all just gotta tough it out.
Dig deep. Dig deep.
Dig deep. Yeah. So we go into the next morning. The 2 of you, alongside John and Tyler, pull off this masterful move against Mackenzie, where me and Brady had no idea that Mackenzie's name was out there. Mackenzie had heard through the grapevine that her name was out there, and then Rachel confirmed it, obviously, in the lead up to Tribal. Matt, question for you. This episode, so in the episode leading up to this one was the double Tribal. We see you and Tyler actively fighting. Like, obviously, you're throwing shots at me, you're throwing shots at Brady, but you and Tyler are the 2 that, like, really get into it. It felt like, to me. And then the next episode, you're like, hey, Tyler, I feel this like really strong bond with you. And Tyler's like, oh my gosh, me too. And you guys are like locked in for the next few rounds. Where did that come from? Yeah, where did that come from?
I kind of want to punch myself in the face for trusting Tyler. But
join the club.
I just enjoy him as a person. And I was, whatever, we have like natural biases, positive or negative, right? And I was just really drawn to him as a person and with the story he shared with me. And I really wanted to work with him. There's like several times where I'm like, dude, game is like, I want to work with you. Like, please be my final two. And he led me along like a man does. But I don't know, like I was just drawn to him, and like he had that energy that like he was a little like, chaotic, like wild, like you didn't know what he was going to do. And I was like, okay, I can work with that. That has potential. So that's kind of, those two things drew me to him, his chaotic kind of nature. And I was just drawn to him as a person. Yeah.
I would say Tyler has that vibe where you can just connect and trust him.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know is he had that vibe with so many people.
Yeah.
But something about Tyler, I think Casey did. I think in the game, a lot of people didn't understand exactly what Tyler was doing, but I do think Casey gave a real credit to what Tyler was doing in his game. But he just has that. We barely talked on that first day, but I knew this guy has me. I am safe. I can trust him. He will not write my name down.
Yeah, you even see from my perspective in back-to-back episodes, we do the tribe swap. And in the episode where we vote out Jamie the first time, I'm like, I have no idea what Tyler's doing. He won't talk strategy with anyone. He is very confusing. Yes, Casey, you mentioned this before, and it's a great pick. I say in my confessional, I'm like, I have no idea what Tyler's doing. He won't talk strategy. And then the literal next episode, I'm like, Tyler's who I actively want to be my number one, is a phrase that I say in a confessional. He just has that draw for people, and he's able to make people trust him so easily. So speaking of Tyler, in this, Stephen, go ahead.
Okay, to talk after your Tyler question, I have a question for Rachel.
Yeah, so this round, we see the Mackenzie round. We see Tyler go up to, in some order, to the two of you and John and say, hey, this round, we are voting Mackenzie. If you hear anything else, do not listen to it. The four of us are voting Mackenzie. And then Rachel, obviously you give a little bit of pushback on that. You're like, are you sure you guys aren't going to have the numbers without me? Because I really don't want to vote for Mackenzie. And then Matt, obviously there's a little bit of pushback from you about like being concerned about Rachel. But it seems like you guys are just like, cool, this is what we're doing. Rachel, arguably to me as a viewer, this was your biggest move of the season, was locking in on that Mackenzie flip. I just want to hear from both of you about this round, because Matt, like I said, this is the round that it seems like you really lock in with Tyler, and then again with John, because there was like that middle section where you and John were a little bit disconnected. So what was this specific round, arguably one of the biggest rounds of the game, like for you?
Do you want to go first, Rachel, or yeah?
Sure. I just coming up how I talked about some of those lowest points of the day with the rain and then the dead weight stuff. I mean, that gutted me, because I mean, that is a kind of comment I wouldn't ever call myself dead weight, but those thoughts that you have about yourself in real life where I'm not enough, or nobody really thinks much of me, or what am I really doing? Those kind of things. And then when it was when that real life kind of intersected with the game, where those kind of harsh words were coming out, even though they weren't intended. And I felt so alone. And then Mackenzie was genuinely there. Like, the game stopped in that moment and she was just there for me. And then just to feel seen and affirmed at a point where I had felt so low in my own head, and it was just so raw. And then to know I've got to now vote this person out, it made me sick. And I didn't, not ranch sick, but it made me sick. And it felt so selfish and wrong. And I talk about it in Final Tribal. I did break, and I told her, and I didn't understand why she didn't understand it. With the edit, looking back, she knew she was a possible decoy vote. So she probably just thought I had bad information, or things got crossed, and I had just, someone had told me, oh yeah, it's Mackenzie. And I'm thinking that's why there was confusion. But I knew if I didn't get Mackenzie out, she was closer to John than I was, it felt. That's a hurdle for me. So especially if I'm coming out feeling disconnected from so many people and feeling I'm on the bottom of these different groups, and she's a central point in multiple groups. So she's gone. That gives me a path for multiple people. And when she was out, I knew my chances of getting to the end just would go up exponentially. She was one variable that the longer she was in, the more chances I have to go home. And but it really sucked. It just sucked. I felt really guilty about it. I still feel a little guilty about it, even though logically I can see in the game it was the right thing to do, but it was really hard to do that because she's still a person and she was still a good friend.
Yeah, and something I wanted to comment on, I commented on this when we talked about that episode, but while also the two of you were here, I think what has been landed on postseason is the dead weight comment was a miscommunication from either myself or from Brady. And again, I say this in the episode, and I said it then in the podcast as well. But if that was my doing, the miscommunication, I take full responsibility for that. And I know that it was never meant from me to hurt Rachel. And anything that Matt said, which I don't believe watching back that Matt said the deadweight comment, nothing Matt said was targeted at Rachel personally either. So I do apologize for my part in making you feel that way in that moment. And I just want to be very vocal about that now because it is very important to me.
I definitely appreciate that. And I think looking back, it was a miscommunication, and it just so happened in the game it hit harder than probably it would have had. And maybe even if it was a sunnier day, maybe it wouldn't have hit as hard. But I think because I was so mentally low at that point, those specific words hit a certain part that was not fun. I will say the thing I went back to, I was like, well, the thing about dead weight is it is hard to move. So I was just like, here I am. I'll just be your dead weight all the way to the end. But I had definitely known people had thought, oh, she's an extrovert or a goat. She's an easy person to take to the end because there's no way she's going to get enough votes to really make a difference. So I knew those ideas were out there. It just so happened it happened at a more emotional time for me and just hit different. But I mean, really, I appreciate the apology. Made some great TV, but you don't really need to apologize. But
I felt the need. It's like stealing bananas is one thing, but like hurting someone is a different thing. Like whether it be intentional or unintentional, like it's important to me because I do love and appreciate you as a person and a friend. So it's important to me. And also like, I know that interaction like obviously fell on Matt a little bit. And in the time I was like, I don't know what's going on. So Matt, also apologies if I caused you to receive any backlash from that. But yes.
I will say, yeah, just talking about that moment, I was so frustrated with you, Drew. Like I felt like everything I communicated with you is like, you are always like turning things around and messing things up. And for me, and not that you were intentionally doing anything, I was just like, I was tired too. I was just, this MF, like, why does he keep messing with me like this? And there was that. Now I will say I did say something along those lines. Like I felt that you and whoever these guys were trying to keep Rachel because you felt like she was a weaker player and try to take her to the end. From my point of view, like I want that spot. So that I was coming to you as kind of like this alpha male leader who was like going all these immunities, like, come on, bro, like let's get her out and let's like duke it out. That was my intent. And this is about game. I saw you as a very prideful player, so I was really trying to like stroke your ego and stuff. So yeah, when that came out, I felt horrible, and like you said, the game, like Rachel's a sweet person, and I adore her, and I know we'd be like hanging out in real life, right? But just to like to mess with someone's mental state or how they feel about themselves, and to such a point that it like just that they can't play the game, like that it destroys them, like that is just not my intent at all. And also I felt guilty for making you feel bad, Rachel, and then I felt even guiltier that you came and like gave me a hug. I felt like, oh, I want to apologize. I felt like so shitty that like I ended up making it about me, and you came and hugged me. So yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this.
I just when I saw that you were so broken about it, and it became clear that this was a miscommunication, I just felt so bad that you felt so bad for something that and you had told me, I think I just assumed you had said those words because you had gone to my face and said, hey, you're a weak player. I said, okay. You said it in a more nice, but you were being honest because you were trying to, I think, connect and just say, here's how I think things are going and here's how they view you. And so I knew that there was that idea floating about from multiple people. It just happened again. It was like that little miscommunication, but that was a genuine moment for us too. I really did feel bad that this had blown out so much, when obviously everyone's intentions were good.
Yeah, and then I think just like watching back the episode, from my part, like I think you saying like you perceive me as a very prideful player, I think is absolutely correct. I think it's my biggest weakness by far in these games is that when I'm in a position of power, I'm like, yep, I'm running it. Like my perception is correct. I mean, you see it even watching this podcast. It's like my perception's correct and whatever. So like when that conversation was brought up and Matt's like, I didn't say that. I'm like, well, did I say that accidentally? Like, am I accidentally throwing Matt under the bus here? And just know, like, your feelings towards me in that moment were super valid. And Casey said this in the comments, like, conversations like these are super important. And I just want to take full ownership over, regardless of intentionality, impact is more important than intention. That's something that I've heard for the past few years, like, impact is greater than intention. And so regardless of intention being hurting Rachel, throwing Matt under the bus, whatever, the impact is what matters more, which is why I want to reiterate the apology again. And I'm glad that the three of us are friends outside of this, regardless of any in-game beef that may be there. But yeah, that's something that I really wanted to touch on now that the three of us are here together. So I'm glad that we were able to have that conversation. And obviously, if there's anything else anybody would like to say. But yes, I wanted to extend that apology, not only to Rachel for making you feel that way, but also for Matt for, unintentionally throwing you under the bus, because regardless of intention, that was the impact. So
yeah, I truly believe no one's trying to hurt each other. And that's something I love about this cast. Like we would like get into it, but like we all had awareness of like, this is the game. we're real people outside of this.
Yes. So Rachel backstabs her best friend in the game, and then we move forward into I'm sorry, Steven, go ahead.
It's all good. So this is kind of bridging off this conversation. Is I feel like one of the storylines, Rachel, we see of your gameplay is like the tension of, I feel like I need to make a big move to prove myself in my game, but do I need to, or how should I do so in a non-destructive manner? And typically I think in games like these, thing of big moves is like you are the orchestrator of a blind side, or you're the one that's pushing a vote, or you play an idol in a shocking manner. Like I feel like those are the quintessential big moves, and your game, you win without having one of those, which I think is a testament to your game that you didn't need that. Can you talk about that struggle throughout the season? Is like, do I need to do something? What do I need to do? How do I deal with this? Like, how do you deal with that?
I don't know. I felt this pressure. I knew because we were playing with such a stacked cast, the jury is going to expect a resume. And if I don't have a good resume, I don't have votes. And I also knew, okay, I have multiple people having a perception of me as weak, dead weight, a go, easily cut a backup plan. And so I realized I really had to pour into the relationships to make sure I was no longer going to be a rogue vote or a backup plan. And if people wanted to keep seeing me as a goat, that was fine, because I knew I would be able to spin the evidence in a way that proved my argument. Especially, again, once Mackenzie was gone, I had assumed with how Drew was winning immunity, he was going to be with me at the final 3. And I knew he would have just how I saw it. And so I started thinking, if I have to go against Drew, what do I need to say? And you see that a little in the final. I'm looking for cracks in people's games, but I was already rehearsing arguments and evaluating evidence and analyzing an argument pretty early on. And that just comes from my old English professor days, learning how to spin the evidence, right? So I think that helped. I felt pretty prepared going into final tribal council, and that I don't need to be the strongest. I don't need to have the best resume. I need to prove to these people that I'm the winner and why. And I just need to make them buy it. And it helps that I was a very likable person. And
correct. Yeah. And not to like jump too far ahead, but
I know, I just went way far.
If you and I were in final tribal together, you beat me. 100% you beat me.
But in that time, in the game,
both of us thought that I would have beat you.
Right. So, but it just helped. It helped me think through what can I really sell when I don't have these big flashy moments. And so I took the little pieces where I did have agency and really highlighted them to the best I could. And something I forgot that I did with John flushing those keys is a pretty big deal, because he could have done some damage or done something funky.
John and these keys, that's a whole journey.
I take the credit for the swing vote, but really, I don't know why John didn't push that. Like, my vote was not that necessary, right? Because weren't there more votes played?
Yeah, John played an extra vote that round for Mackenzie, just in case she decided to turn back on it.
Yeah, so my vote was irrelevant.
Well, you could have forced a tie, which would have been a whole thing, but...
Yeah, but it wasn't as impactful as I pushed it up to be. But I'm just thinking, I had totally forgotten that. And that point where I'm like, go to Matt, I made John flush keys. I wanted Matt to see, hey, I'm playing. I'm getting John I'm doing things here, and you need to pay attention. Because if John doesn't have keys, that's less power he has, and that puts him in a vulnerable position, and it gives options.
Yeah. Anything to say about the Brady vote out round? I guess like the main storyline of that round was like, do we vote out Brady or Drew? At that point, it was pretty clear to everybody it was a 4 versus 2. I still felt like my big thing was like, okay, numbers wise, it's 4 versus 2. But Rachel, you and I, this is not shown in the season. Rachel, you and I had a very close personal relationship. Game wise, we weren't necessarily on the same track, but you and I had a very close personal relationship. And then I felt like it was the same with me and John. But anything from you, Matt, or Rachel on the Brady boot round before we actually talk about the episode we're here to?
I would just say I went back and forth, Brady Drew, but ultimately I stand by it, because if Brady is in, she wins Final 4 immunity. She had more keys than more coins than I did. And so to me, it was worth the risk of Drew winning an immunity at the wrong moment to flush those coins out.
Yeah, unless you guys had voted Brady out at 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt, how many coins did you have when you got voted out?
I was walking around. I remember walking around with Rachel and John, and I'd be like walking with Rachel, like, oh, there's a bag, you want it? I go to walking with John, like, hey, there's a bag, you want it? Like, I was just trying to build social thing.
And I was like, okay. And then I make a big thing that, I got these coins by myself, but really Matt gave me keys. Tyler, I think everyone but Drew gave me those coins. I sobbed.
Which I didn't have any to give you.
Right? Yeah, you didn't have any. But John gave me a few, and Tyler gave me a couple. I don't remember, but they gave me a little bit that made a difference. And then Matt, you had given me a whole pouch. So.
What I just kind of jump ahead, but like that's so poetic that was the Final Four competition. You won it because it's almost like social currency. Like the fact that we're just like, here you go, and like you put in the work and got it. I just thought it was so poetic. I don't know.
Right, and then I was like, I did this all.
But you did it.
I did. Right, I did it. I did it in the way I needed to. I think it helped. We were convinced it was a fire making challenge, and so I did the whole sob. I can't make fire. I can't make fire. I'm gonna need these to buy. If we're gonna get through, you got to give me something. And so,
Stephen, to answer your question in the chat, if Casey doesn't know, I will investigate and find out within the next few days.
Yeah, because he plays 2 extra votes. I know.
John, we're talking about John. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. John plays 2 extra votes. I know the first one he got 2 keys from you, Rachel, or 1 key.
I'm sorry. What?
We're trying to figure out how many keys John played through the season.
I gave him 1 key.
But he didn't need it because he ended up having 4 keys at the time, right? So he has 4. He gets 1 from you. That's 5. He buys an extra vote. He then later buys a second extra vote, and then even at that final tribal council, he finds 2-3 keys at the voting booth, or two keys, doesn't give them to you, and then you still find that last key you need anyways.
That was such a funny scene where I was like so cocky.
No, Rachel, that's my favorite. One of my favorite Rachel moments from the whole season is you being like, so John funny. Thinks he's running it, but he's not. I'm like, oh, tell him.
I'm so sassy and I just look like an idiot.
Rachel, that was me the whole season. So feel free to look like an idiot with me. It's fun.
It's good TV.
I know we're jumping around. So the coin twist for the Final Four. I'm just gonna throw some things out to the 3 of you and see, would you like that 1,000 corporate in the twist in the future or not? It's good as is. I was surprised there wasn't an inheritance feature, right? The people voted out could will the coins to someone. So let's say Brady's coins would go to someone, Matt, your coins would go to someone. Would you want to see something like that if this twist was implemented again?
As a player in the season, I did not like the twist. As a viewer of the season, I did not like the twist because to me, that doesn't feel survivory. Mm-hmm. The coin thing being immunity, mind you, Casey has said this multiple times, and I fully back him in this. Surviving Bloomington is not trying to emulate Survivor. We're not trying to emulate CBS. Surviving Bloomington is its own thing. And if that is what Surviving Bloomington is, then that's fine. Am I going to love everything about Surviving Bloomington? No. Do I love everything about CBS Survivor? No. I personally, and I feel like I might be biased. I'm trying not to be biased, but as a viewer, I just don't find the coins to be something that I'm like, yes, that's what I want to see in a season of reality TV. And Casey knows this. That's the only reason I'm saying that. I talked to Casey about this after the season. That's just my personal opinion. I think the inheritance thing is actually super interesting. If you started this twist at Merge where there are coin pouches hidden and then everyone voted out wills them to someone else. And so at the Final Four, they have their own coins plus whatever's been willed to them. That's something intriguing to me. And I would definitely consider that an improvement. Wait, we have KCT in the chat. Sorry. The original plan was to tell you all at Final 6 that this was the Final Four challenge, but in the moment we were worried it would encourage people to pull their coins if they knew what they were. So it changed last minute. If I could go back, I would have announced at Final 6 that it was the Final Four challenge. And if that were to happen, I would not have sat on my butt the entire Final 6 round being like, I'm not looking for anything. Sorry, Matt.
I would say, again, it's poetic. Rachel's talked about all these alpha males going after each other, and it's kind of like the lion and lamb. I don't know, we expect a Final Four battle into the final, but it was just this. That simple's not the word. Just this peaceful thing that happened, and I was like, oh, what a cool, like, we were expecting this like major battle, and it was like a social, going to be a social competition, and it just was poetic for Rachel's game that she won, and that's I like that for our season. Yeah.
I loved it. It worked out great for me. I was shocked. I was shocked that was how it went. But it ended up being pivotal for my game. Because then it gave me visibility, because jury was able to see that moment. Whereas usually they wouldn't see the challenge. And even though obviously a lot of the finding the coins was elsewhere, it was such a visible moment. I think it made a big impact on the jury and their view of me. And it was it was affirming that, hey, you never know what's going to happen in this type of game. And I loved Tyler's opening, how Casey reused it for this one with hope. And you just never know what's going to happen. And you just have to keep hoping that the luck falls on your side and the game that you play works its way. And so it was a really special moment, because obviously I knew I'm not a challenge beast. But it was affirming to know, like, hey, you never know what's going to happen. And there's value to all types of challenges. And so this was a kind of what Matt said, it wasn't the big flashy Final Four that maybe we'd expect, but it did work well with my story.
Yeah, I will say from a storyline perspective, amazing, because it's this like final push that like Rachel is playing this game. Like this is your final push, and not only that, it serves as a fantastic downfall for me. I've debated this since episode 1. If I were watching myself play the season and weren't me, would I be rooting for myself? And I think by the end of the season, I'd be like, oh, yes, so glad that this happened to him. So I think it's fantastic from a storytelling perspective. And I love that was the final push for you, Rachel, to get you not only into that final 3, but also show what you're able to do in these kinds of games. I think from a narrative perspective, fantastic.
And I will say another thing I like about it is anyone could have won that. Anyone could have done it. If it was a fire making, there would have been obvious strengths and weakness across the board. If it was a puzzle, there would have been obvious strengths and weaknesses across the board. But this was something that anyone could have won. If that makes sense. It was a very balanced playing field, which
equitable
made it
comp.
interesting for a Final Four.
Yep.
Rachel, Matt, Drury alluded to this, but had Casey disclosed, hey, this is for immunity at the Final 6, how would you have spent that Final 6, Final 5 round differently? Or would you?
For me, I probably would have played it similarly, trying to help other people find coins just because I felt low on the social. I probably would try to win favor with people to be like, hey, I helped you get that. I probably would have stayed the same. What about you, Rachel?
I probably would have done the same. I obviously spent a lot of time looking. It was a hard balance because you still needed to be in on the conversations and make sure nothing wonky was going on. Brady was driving me crazy because she would just leave the burlap pouches there with empty. They'd be empty. So many times I would think, I got him. And it was just an empty pouch that she left. So
is it okay if I go back really quick to Mackenzie and then Brady, because I wanted to say, I know we kind of with me that Mackenzie vote, I was so 7 where I came. I think right away I said to Tyler, like, I'm voting Mackenzie. If she wins, like if she gets further in this game, like we're all gonna lose. She's well spoken. She's well liked. She played a good social game, and that's just from my perspective. And I think Tyler ran with that. So I was happy to get her out because our games had kind of just like slowly fallen apart from each other, and also like just socially, like I was wanting, looking back now, that conversation I had with you, Rachel, where I was like looking to like change things up, and I was talking about weakness, because I was saying like, let's do something else. And you're like, I can't really change the votes. And I was like, don't play from a place of weakness. Your vote matters. I was trying to like bond with you, like let's make something happen. But I felt like Mackenzie and you were closer, and like I wanted to be closer with you, and then it just didn't happen. So I wanted Mackenzie out. Now I can't say that I had any effect on that. I think a lot of that was Tyler motivating it. From my perspective, I don't know. And then with final 6 with Brady, man, I wanted Drew out so bad, but he scared me with those keys. And so I thought Brady was the next best option, because I remember Brady going around and being like, I'll give someone all my coins, but I did not believe her. I thought she was so close with Drew. I was just like, whatever. But I really wanted Drew out, but I got spooked by keys. And hearing what you were saying, Rachel, I was like, oh man, I wish we had talked and like, I don't know, got the willpower to do it then. But
yeah, and you guys could have gotten me out there, and I would have been very mad. But it would have been props.
Mackenzie wins that next challenge. She wins that Twister challenge, and that's when we walked into that challenge, I was like, okay, I did the right thing. In my mind, that is her element there, and she wins that.
Yeah, I've talked about this what if with a couple of people. I know I've talked about it with Rachel. Matt, I didn't bring it up with you for an obvious reason. If Rachel doesn't vote out Mackenzie there and Matt goes out instead at 7, that would mean that me, Mackenzie, Rachel, and Brady would have just voted together. I think probably the next round, what would have happened is Mackenzie wins immunity at 6. And probably either John Tyler and Brady, I think, are probably the next 3 boots in some order, with me being cut at 4 maybe. And it ends up being like a Rachel, Mackenzie, and then one of John Tyler final 3. And Rachel loses to Mackenzie. I think Mackenzie's probably the only person that made merge that Rachel loses to. So Rachel made the right call.
Agreed. And Rachel voting out Mackenzie was why at final 5, when I was trying to go after somebody, I went after Rachel. That's when she really, like, I like her as a person. I wanted to work with her. And like I said, I was conflicted, but like I felt like she was in my lane, like being one of the, parent players, and she's a strategic person. She's had these votes. And then looking at the jury, there was a lot of like not male identifying players. I'm like, I feel like they're going to be drawn to Rachel. Like, I need this Rachel out of here so I have a path forward.
I was so floored by you. I was so floored because it feels, I think you described our relationship like a roller coaster, up and downs. And we'd have these great moments. Like, okay, I think Matt's okay. I think we can hang together. I don't think he's going to go for me. I think we're good. And then boom, write my name down.
And I wish I would have seen Rachel's true threat level, because when we're going into final 5, obviously I know it's a 4 against 1. But final 5, in my opinion, for me, is by far my biggest misplay. Because Rachel and I together find that idol. It's in my possession. And I tell Rachel, and I was being truthful when I told Rachel, I was like, Rachel, you're the only other person I would play this idol on. I have immunity. If you feel in danger, I'll play it on you. And Rachel tells me, like, I think I'm fine. Just hold it. Like, you don't need to use it. It'll be fine. And that was my biggest misplay of the game. I should have played it on Matt. It's fine. It's fine. I should have played it on Matt, and then me and Matt would have made final 3 together, and Rachel would be out, and me and Matt probably would have both gotten votes over Tyler or John, whoever made it there with us. But yeah, Rachel, that's just a more props to you, because in my head, I'm like, not only were you the only person on the cast that I would have been willing to play the idol on other than myself, but also by me not playing it on you, it's like no matter what combination of people you make it to the end with, you win at this point. So it's just like, I can make it to the end with whoever. It's fine.
I remember being shocked when you told me you would play it on me. And I think, and I know you and I've talked about this I think because I had grouped you with so many other people, I didn't realize how much you truly trusted me and wanted to work with me and saw me a part of your end game
Yeah, at that
until it
point
was
you were
almost too
my
little
number
too
one.
late. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I just didn't see it that way. I did not realize it. Now looking back, hearing from you outside of the game, I was like, yeah, that all makes sense. But I was just happy. Like, okay, he's not going to play this idol. He's not going to add to his resume. Like, to know that I could get you to keep that idol out of play and not doing something else crazy was so great for me, because I still, again, working from the idea that I'm going to have to go against you at the end.
Yeah, and there was no thought in my head to play it on John, Tyler, or Daddy Matt. I mean, I say in a confessional, I'm like, I could just throw a vote on someone and use an idol on them just for like fun. But in my head, I'm like, that's just a lot of work. And
well, I was looking back,
yeah,
because I wrote, I wanted to know how close you already answered. Like, how close were you to playing the idol?
not at all.
But that ends up being John and Matt both vote me that round because John spooks again.
Right.
And so had you voted for me, like had you done that little funny plan, voted for me and then played an idol for me, that could have been crazy.
The thing is, Rachel, I never was going to vote for you. I would have voted for any of the other three, but I was never going to vote for you. I say this in a confessional. I was like, Rachel, I'm tired of Rachel being the backup plan. I say this to people in a conversation. I'm like, Rachel needs a break. Bye, Steven. I'm like, Rachel needs a break. I'm not voting for Rachel here. If she wants me to play the idol on her, I will absolutely do it. But you had communicated to me that you didn't feel like you needed it. And I, based on my conversations, was like, yeah, I don't think Rachel needs it. In my head, the only two people realistically I would have voted for that round were Matt or Tyler. And I was like, it's going to be a 4-1 on Matt. No use in me doing anything else. That's what it is. Matt, what was that round like for you?
Oh, yeah. My question to you, Matt's kind of with that. In retrospect, do you think there's things you could have done to change things?
Well, you saw that merge. Everyone was against the Matts. They wanted Exceptional Matt out and then me Matt. So I don't know what all this matricide is. But oh my gosh, sorry, I'm rolling my eyes because I'm thinking about Drew again. I feel like so many times I was second to Drew in winning immunity, like that little green red marble thing.
Absolutely.
And then the puzzle thing. I was just like, get this dude out of here. So I felt it was like kind of cool that we were the last two on the puzzle, but then I was like, man, looking back, I made up that fake advantage. I should have thought about it a little bit better. It was good, but then as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh, damn it, Matt. Because the way I played it, it was going to be a revote. So I was like, they could hypothetically, if this was a real vote for me and then come up with a plan B. And I was like, oh, I should have thought, but it was coming out of my mouth. And I was like thinking in my head, like, shoot. But I had to keep the poker face. And I was like, well, that blew up. But I knew I was going to try to do this. I played it wrong.
You spooked us.
I did, but I
believed you. I was floored. You see it. I really believed you had something.
Well, and that's why, at that live tribal, I'm like, in all the conversations I'm having with Rachel, I'm like, should I play the idol on you? Should I play the idol on you? And Rachel's like, I think I'm okay.
Matt, in retrospect, what would have been the ideal advantage to fake?
Something that I had immunity or anything but see, I didn't know there was an immunity idol. I'm the only person that didn't know.
Oh, and really?
Yeah, because I told Rachel
only told John and Tyler.
Rachel told wait, Rachel, which one? You told one of them, and then the one told the other. You told Tyler. Tyler told John.
Tyler, and Tyler probably told John. I can't remember if I would have. I know we didn't see me tell John. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I definitely told Tyler, and it was so funny with Casey's editing.
Yeah,
hopefully she won't tell anyone.
Yeah, I think me and Matt actually both have the same optimal gameplay that round, and the optimal gameplay for both of us is I play the idol on Matt, and Rachel goes out.
I had been searching the whole game for a final two, or my number one, because mine was out the first round. And I felt like nobody ever chose me. Like I was always the bridesmaid, or like even actually like third or fourth in line. But so like Drew, I think if I had known you had an idol, that's another mistake. If I had known you had an idol, I would have come to you and be like, if you save me, like I guarantee, like I promise you, I will like not vote you out final four. And
I probably would have believed you.
Yeah, I would have done it.
Yeah.
I would have done it. But I trusted John and Tyler too much. And I told John that I was playing disadvantage, but it was fake. I told Tyler I was playing disadvantage. So I just trusted them too much. I believed that they were going to take me to the end.
And I fell in the same trap. I think my thing was in game did not see Rachel's threat level. In my mind, in the final five, the only person who could beat me was you because of your story of being on the bottom and having to punch up the whole time. And so in my head, I'm like, cool, we take out Matt here. I don't need to play the idol. I'll just win final four immunity and we'll vote out like Tyler or something. And then I'll just out talk Rachel and John at final tribal. Obviously, had I seen Rachel's actual threat level, I would have reevaluated my path. And I think in talking with you guys, I think if I play the idol on you, Matt, at 4, Rachel goes out, or at 5, sorry, Rachel goes out at 5. And then John
would have to.
John wins final 4.
No, Tyler had a lot of coins.
Or Tyler, sorry, it was Tyler, not John. No, one of them only had like 3.
I thought John had 3 and Tyler had like almost as many as Rachel.
Tyler had
okay, so it was so Tyler would have won final 4 immunity. Based on what I understand, Matt and I would have forced a tie. Matt and I would have voted for John. John and Tyler would have voted for me. The tiebreaker has been confirmed by KC to have been a puzzle. I tend to think that I would beat John in a puzzle, which would lead to a me, Matt, Tyler final 3, which obviously changes the outcome of the season. I think probably me or Matt wins that. But final 5 round, worst round of the game for me gameplay wise. Yep. Matt, you scared us though at Tribal, which was fun.
Yeah, I do like just throwing those bombs out there. No, not throwing bombs, like applying the pressure. That's what I love about reality TV though, is like you have people, different personalities, different ways of playing this game. And you put them in a hard place, like Rachel having to vote out Mackenzie, like the heart or head, like, and what are people going to do in these situations? I love seeing that. So when things get live, I'm like, yeah, we're really putting the pedal to the metal and seeing where people's, loyalties lie and what they're going to do when the heat turns up.
So for the final 4 round, I kind of have just 2 main questions. The first was, Rachel, the decision to target Drew, and then followed with Drew, kind of the comment that seems like it caused you to lose John as a ally was Tyler being a 0 finalist. So Rachel, can we start with you in the decision process when evaluating competitors of who do you want to sit by at the final 3?
I did not want to sit. I mean, I called him King Drew. He had his little crown idol. In my head, right or wrong, if he's there, he wins. And even though I had planned for that, that was not my ideal situation. And so I knew that Drew, as a very, very vocal person, from day one had been throwing holes in Tyler's game. What is Tyler really doing? I knew that was a narrative that was going to help me out at the end. I knew, especially if Drew goes home or back to jury, and Tyler still doesn't know what he's doing. That narrative of sitting next to Tyler, even though I saw his game, I appreciate his game, other people didn't see it. And so I knew that was going to be helpful to me. John, I knew obviously had burnt some bridges. I did not know about some of the pregame, I didn't know any of that going on. I did know they were brothers going in. So I knew by merge. And So they were my ideal 3. I knew it was still going to be hard. I thought people would still appreciate John's game more. He has that visible, physical game. He had called so many shots since day one. Even Matt mentioning on that original Order tribe being able to sway things. You know, we've seen his game. He has the confidence too. So I didn't think, oh, I'm definitely beating John. I did think I would be able to swing it my way. I thought it would be a closer vote, though, between me and John at the end. And with Matt, Matt, you just talked about, like, you wanted to have the outcast game. Like, I wanted that part of my story, too. And so we can't have 2 sob stories. There can only be one. And they need to sit in the middle. And so... that's kind of the way I saw it. I thought Matt's likable. He has a lot of people on the jury that would listen to him. I don't want someone that's too similar to me going in.
For me, so the way that round progressed kind of at camp, we get to camp, we like sit down and we're like, so how are we going to do this? And we kind of all agreed on, like, there's 4 people. The only real way you can do this is to like rotate pairs, basically. The first person I talked to that round was Rachel, and we like split off, and Rachel was basically like, is there anything you want to say? I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm pitching to you. Like, I'll vote whoever you want. Just know that I really value our personal relationship, and it would be nice to like see the relationship through to the end. You know, I've had your back the whole time. I told you I'd play the idol on you. I meant it. And Rachel was like, okay, well, I just need to talk to the other 2 first. We rotate through all the pairs. I am like, hey, Rachel, let's go talk again. And in that conversation, Rachel's like, I'm sorry. Like, I have to vote for you. Like, there's not another option for me. And I had my moment. I broke down to Rachel. I'm very glad that it was not on camera. Hopefully it was not on camera, because I was a blubbering mess. I told her I understood. I think, Rachel, I communicated to you, like, I understand. I would do the same thing in your position, but like, ouch. And I say that basically at tribal too. So we go back over, and I'm obviously like, okay, well, Rachel's voting for me, so maybe I can pull John and or Tyler to vote for not me. I go back into camp. John goes off to talk to Rachel. Tyler tells me straight up he's voting for me. And in that, I had like reached a boiling point with Tyler. You see it building through the previous few episodes since Tyler voted for Brady and was like, got into her with about that. The next round, blindsides Mackenzie, doesn't loop me in on it. And the whole time he's telling me like, oh, Drew, this is for our benefit. This is for our benefit. And you kind of see me, I like lay into him about this at Final Tribal. I'm like, you literally are just making things up. Like, this was not for our benefit. This was for your benefit. And you trying to drag me along. And in that moment of frustration, I'm like, well, Tyler, you can do whatever you want. It's not really going to matter for you because you're going to be a 0 vote finalist. Because my perception at that point was, I know Rachel's making Final 3. If Tyler makes Final 3, I knew Rachel was going to get, my perception was Rachel was not going to win, but she was going to get more votes than Tyler would. And so I said that out of spite. And then obviously going into the final tribal council and jury speeches, I'm like, yeah, I should not have said that. That was uncalled for. That was me being in the moment. We know I'm a very reactive person emotionally. I'm a very sensitive person. I'm a very emotional person. And that's not an excuse. That's an explanation as to why I said that both at camp and at Final Four Tribal. It's because I was frustrated. I was frustrated that my perception, which was obviously wrong, was that up until that point, I was the front runner, and that was being cut out from underneath me. And it goes back to what Matt said earlier. I was a very prideful player. It's my biggest weakness in the game. And that's what it was. And it was pointed out to me when I was on jury. I think like the first or second person I talked to was Danny on the jury. And Danny's like, hey, just wanted to let you know, this comment rubbed me the wrong way. And now that I'm out of the game, I had that moment of reflection of like, oh, yeah, that's not the person that I want to be. I need to, correct this statement and this behavior. So I'm glad that at least somebody was able to point it out to me, because if it was not pointed out to me, I would not have realized it, because I lack the ability to see flaws in myself a lot of times. So I'm very thankful for Danny. Shout out to Danny for that. And also, once again, Tyler, I love you. Not in the game, but in life, I love you so much.
Because what was fascinating about this comment was John's reaction, that really John kind of on the spot reevaluates what, because I think John is seriously contemplating forcing a tie to try to knock Tyler up to Tyler jury, and John's like, well, why do I want Tyler out when Tyler is a zero vote finalist? That's good for me.
And at camp, John was very open with me that he was on the fence about forcing the tie or not. The whole walk to tribal, I'm like, John, please, like, this means a lot to me. I wasn't even trying to manipulate him even. I'm just like, John, please, like, this is the only option I have, please. And he's been open with me after the game that he was genuinely considering forcing the tie, because from his perspective, if Tyler's on the jury, Tyler's a voice for him to the jury. And so he was genuinely considering it as an option, forcing the tie, until I said that. And again, that's me just being a flawed player. That's what it is.
So, Drew, Matt, you're both now on the jury. Can you talk to me a little bit about your philosophy as a juror, and I guess specifically philosophy as a juror, what you're looking for, and that were you already leaning some way walking the final tribal council? Matt, can I start with you?
Yes, sir. I was pretty open going in. I was leaning towards John going in. Tyler, I didn't get his game. And so I tribal, I was needing to understand his game better, and I feel like I still didn't really get it. But I like him as a person. So like maybe, like that. As opening statements, I thought Rachel and John did really well. And as it continued, it just started to come into focus for me that this is Rachel's game. And I remember a distinct moment where the brother, like, I find out they're brothers. I find out like previous, relationships and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, all this is starting to come into focus. And I'm understanding Rachel and John's game a little bit better. But there was a moment where like Rachel was just like, was sitting there and the brothers are like fighting over her. And I was just like, she's like, they're doing their thing, and she's just like, I'm like, damn, she's so good. She's like letting them like that, and just I just remember it kind of in that moment it came into focus for me. And I know we did the vote where who thinks they have what vote, and Rachel did not think she had my vote, and she changed it for me. Yeah, that was my experience.
I'm so. Casey, my gripe with you is that was cut out of the episode. Basically what happened, I don't remember which juror was it that asked that. I don't remember. One of the jurors.
I have notes.
It wasn't.
No, it was cut out of the episode. We get a reference to it
from Mackenzie. Yeah,
by Mackenzie.
It would have been somebody before Mackenzie. I think it was Danny. But one of the jurors asks the final three to close their eyes, and they go jury member by jury member and say, hey, final three, raise your hand if you think you're going to get this person's vote. Danny. Okay. When it got to me, I was the last juror, and all three of the final three raised their hand, which I thought was really interesting. And I kind of laughed about it because I was like, Tyler, if you think I'm voting for you, absolutely no. But anyway, I went into the final three having talked to the jury briefly, knowing Rachel was the front runner. My vote was leaning John solely because at like final five-ish, John and I promised each other our jury votes. I was planning to go to the end with John. Like I said, my final three was either me, John, Rachel, or me, John, Tyler. but I was like, well, John and I had really bonded personally. John and I promised each other jury votes. I even told John that I didn't hold it against him, that he cut me at 4 or whatever and didn't force the tie. So I went in basically knowing Rachel was winning. But I had promised John my vote. And to me, John's game was a little bit more visible. I think Rachel had the better final tribal council by far. But John's game was a little bit more visible to me. And also, I think I was just a little bit not thrilled with Rachel cutting me at 4. And I say this is cut out of my final vote when I vote for John. I'm like, I can't wait to have drinks with you. Like, whatever. Before all that, I had like a 2-minute thing where I was going back and forth being like, well, I know Rachel's going to win. Because at that point, we all knew Rachel was going to win. The jury did. And I was like, well, I know Rachel's going to win. So do I just vote for the winner? And then at that point, it came down to, I want Tyler to get 3rd. And I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry. But like, that's the truth. And that's what we're here to discuss.
I said it to my husband. I was like, I know he only voted for John at the end of the day so that his Tyler comment about being a 0 vote finalist hit just a little bit hard.
It wasn't even the 0 vote finalist comment. It was like, because I knew that Rachel, I knew you had locked votes for Kim, Little Matt, Danny, Jamie, Mackenzie, and Brady. I knew you had the 6 of their votes. At that point, going into Final Tribal, it was a little bit more up in the air. So the only person whose vote that I really didn't know where it was going was Daddy Matt's. And I'm like, well, either way, Rachel has at least 6 votes. So I just want Tyler to be not second place. Yeah, Casey even says in the comments, like, everybody's like, yeah, we know Rachel's going to win. So for me, it was just like, well, out of the other 2, I want Tyler to lose worse. And John's game was a little bit more visible to me. So that's where I was. What did Casey say?
So Casey says, it was annoying to edit around every jury member being like, we all know Rachel's going to win, LOL.
Well, what was his previous thing about in season 5 about Hannah?
So here's a question, Jill. And so in season 5, Hannah said that she thinks that jury members vote for the person who plays the game that they wanted to play. Matt and Drew, did you feel that way? And then Rachel, let's say Drew is in the final 3 and you're on jury. Who do you want to vote for? And I want to back up this comment saying the one time I have been on a jury, this is literally how I voted, where I sat there as like, I don't know. I guess I like how Cole played better than Jumi. It's more my style. So Matt and Drew, to you, does this comment resonate with you?
I definitely think that John played a more similar game to how I played than Tyler or Rachel played to me. But I can never play how John plays. That man has mystical powers over people with the way that he can make them trust him. Every single person in this cast is like, yeah, Drew, you read is really shady to me. I'm like, I'm trying to be loyal. I'm trying. Like, or even Rachel said it. Rachel's like, Drew, I did not trust you. And I'm like, Rachel's my bestie. I just read as shady. I could definitely see that as being part of the reason I voted John. I think maybe even I say in my thing, like, John, you play the kind of game that I want to play. So very plausibly so.
Matt?
I try to come open heart, open mind. There's going to be some bias, of course. Gameplay, like what people share with me, because, we have my question was about perception, right? Like what I thought, and then like we're getting all the pieces. So, we're relying on the final 3 to tell us their game.
Mm-hmm.
And so gameplay, and do I understand your game? Then also, like, a factor with me is like, who do I think represents our season well? That was also in my thought process.
And then Rachel, the hypothetical. You are on the jury. Someone is taking your spots. Do you know who you would have wanted to vote for? How you would have wanted voted?
It would have been, I usually follow my heart. So I've only been on the jury one other time in an org, and I voted for someone I knew wasn't going to win, but that they were one of my number 1 allies until I got the boot. And And so it would really depend if I thought something was close and like a true-ish winner may get, like, if my vote, it would just depend on who was there. For example, if I thought Tyler is getting no votes and Tyler was my number one, I could easily see, oh, well, Drew's already winning. I want to give tribute to I know the game that Tyler played and he was my number one. I might throw a vote. But if if it became clear in Final Tribal something wasn't cut and dry, then I would really have to be more objective and not follow my heart and follow my head. Because I wouldn't want to accidentally take someone's win away just because I had a friend up there, you know.
My perception in terms of the conversations I've had with people is that if it was a me, John, Tyler Final Tribal, Kim was a locked vote for Tyler in that situation. Little Matt was a locked vote for me. Danny would have been between me and Tyler. It would have been heavily dependent on if I would have apologized about my 0 vote finalist comment. But if I was in the final 3, I wouldn't have had that conversation with Danny, so would not have known to apologize for it. It would not have been pointed out to me. So I tend to think that Danny would have voted Tyler there. Jamie was voting Tyler, locked vote, would not have voted me or John under any circumstances at all. Mackenzie was a locked vote for me. Brady was a locked vote for me, which puts it at 3 for Tyler, 3 for me, 0 for John, and the 2 of you would have been the final 2 jurors. So it's a lot to think about.
Rachel, is there anything about this Final Tribal Council you want to bring up and talk about? Having been on the receiving end of all the questions.
I mean, I was really proud of myself. I think, again, I really had been rehearsing my arguments and I knew people would want something clear and concise and something that they could kind of believe in and want a person they could root for. And I thought I could give it to them. I think it was cut, or maybe it was in a confessional. I don't remember, but I talk a little bit about being a mom and how it's so counter that. And there is some of that, but really not only just, I talked about it more of like, oh, I'm managing kids and it's so chaotic, but there's not a lot of, in my day-to-day life, where I'm like fighting for myself or pushing myself just to push and to see how far I can go and to really just test myself. And it was, that is what Bloomington gave me. It just gave me a chance to sit with all of my self-criticism, all of my fears, all the things I know I want to improve on, but can't, and so it really was a game, but it was really a personal growth experience for me. And it was so special watching the whole season that Casey did, for just personally. It just that I can really remember some of these moments better. And then when Danny said, give your strengths out, and I just knew, I was like, all right, let's go. And I was pretty confident at that point. And it was just to get that affirmation when you've been under fire and there's still so much up in the air. That was a cool moment, but that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Drew, is there anything else to Rachel and Matt, is there anything else that you all want to get to? We're at the 2-hour mark, which we can go on forever, but if there's anything else that we think we've missed you'd like to talk about before we kind of move to the wrap-up stage?
I'm just really grateful for the opportunity, and I think that this specific cast was really meaningful to me and very conducive to me, not only as a player, but also just as a person, because there's not a single person on this cast that I don't have a personal relationship with. And this being only my second multi-day live game, and after being first out on the first one that I played in Real Foot, and then the ones that I've done following, this cast is just really special to me, and Casey and the crew are just very special to me. That's why, like, the second I found out when season 7 was filming, I was like, I will be there on production, running around like a maniac, trying to help out, because not only is Casey a great person, but every person on the crew, the cast, I mean, the organization that we're raising money for, just very meaningful to me personally. And yeah, I know a lot of times in the episodes I come off as this like obnoxious, like douchey, whatever, but genuinely, this was a very meaningful experience to me emotionally deep down. I'm a soft little baby on the inside. And so I just want to express that publicly to everyone involved, viewers, Casey, production, Matt, Rachel, Steven, the rest of the cast. Very appreciative. As far as logistics with the game, great time. Glad I got to keep my little idol. That's it.
Can I say one more thing, or can Matt go on?
Go for it.
Okay. I did promise my daughter Adeline that I would just remind everyone that she did train me. So all 3 kids, like, they would really like, she made an immunity idol and hid it in our yard. We would run laps around our house, like practice sprinting, and she legit came up with things for me to do, and it was fun. The kids were all in on it. But she did tell me to make sure that I reminded the listeners that her and the kids did pay an impact, and also just whoever shot those credits shot. If you've watched this episode but you didn't watch the credits, you have to go back because you will sob, or at least I do, because it was so special to seeing those after the win moments, talking to my husband and kids and a few friends, and it was just special.
Yeah, the humanity of the game was really captured. Like that ending moment was really special. Casey did a great job with that, because sometimes, yeah, I'm not well versed in this, but like sometimes certain allergies are focused just like on the competitions and stuff. This really had a lot of heart in it. I did want to give a shout out to some of the jury members that stood out to me during their questioning. Mackenzie, and we saw her in a trash bag fashion earlier in the season, and she was fashioning a sleeping bag. She's always a fashionista. And then I want to say Kim. I don't know. She is just magical. I remember she asked her a question and just like sat down. I think we were there for an hour. She just sat down and like held court. So I wanted to give a shout out to that because we didn't see those. But really wonderful season, has a special place in my heart, and excited for everyone to see season 7 when it comes out.
I also have one more comment. I would just like to say that I never voted for a woman the entire game, including to win. So I'm a feminist, everyone.
Hey, I'm a feminist. I only voted for women in the game.
I want Rachel
Oh,
out.
and I'm so sorry I used female as a noun. I just learned about that recently, and so I was very I don't know. If it bothers you, I'm sorry, but
Rachel's canceled.
I know. I'm a feminist too.
Well, Rachel, you will have to give your crown up in a year.
For a little longer.
Yeah. So
I'm so excited to talk about season 7 already.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch.
So
we're watching All Stars right now. Caleb's hooked, my husband, so we're going back. Just started.
Yay!
So as we kind of wrap up phase, Drew, I'm thinking favorite quote or moments, a surprise video to you all that only I know about, and Casey, and then one final surprise from Casey to Rachel. That's what I have on the agenda.
Fantastic. My favorite moment from the episode was during Brady's tribal council questioning when she said she doesn't want to hear the Olsen twins bickering.
Darn it, that was mine.
And then she was like, no more fighting. That's my gig.
I mean, it was the moment I remember watching it being like, wow, that's exactly what happens between me and my brother. And at that moment, it was like, they are related.
Rachel, go.
I honestly felt when Danny did that confessional and remembered my kids' names, and then it was my daughter's birthday, and that I remembered that real little detail. Oh, it meant so much to me. Just a funny moment I noticed. there's Casey's like, so Rachel, looking at Final Five, and I literally am looking literally, and it's just a funny scene. There's also a moment where I'm like, and I got myself safe, and Drew rolls his eyes, and it's just like so. It's like, yeah. But I really said all my favorite moments just in those comments before. Just those special little clips make me happy.
Matt.
My favorite quote was from Rachel this episode when she talks about Drew finding the immunity idol, and she's just like, crown him now, just give it to him.
And the clown music, Casey has the little clown soundtrack. It was good.
So good. And then on a personal one that made my jaw drop was John calling me a cockroach. I was like, oh, I thought we were so close in this game, and you're calling me a cockroach that you can't exterminate. And then my favorite moment we kind of talked about was Drew in confessionals saying that he told Rachel about the idol and the edit of like Tyler says it and then John says it. I just thought that was great.
That's such great comeuppance, because last episode, there's like the episode before the finale, there's like that moment where me and John are talking, and I'm like, I swear I won't tell anyone. And then it cuts to me and Brady, and I'm like, so John told me. It's exactly what I deserve.
So Casey sent me a clip. It is 5 minutes and 45 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and get it set up here. It's going to star Matt and Rachel. Let me go ahead. And so hopefully...
I know what it is.
All right, let me make sure that the sound is working. Hopefully it is. If it's not, let me know.
There is no sound from my end.
Okay, I had this issue the last time we were doing this. Let me present, share screen.
I'm like already about to cry.
All right, round two.
I don't think I can read.
Let me know if you hear it when it comes up.
Okay. So we were talking about. I don't think I can recreate it. I'm camera shy. We started talking about Northern Michigan, and we figured out my husband's family grew up in Northern Michigan, and your mom is Traverse City. So there's this little tiny place called Rapid City that's like 40 minutes from Traverse City, and like it's called Rapid City. It's like a mile long, and when we were visiting one weekend, like weeks before, my husband or my boyfriend at the time had told me, listen, like he just had this thing where like he had to buy the ring this year, like he couldn't do a credit card or anything, and he like wasn't making anything at the time, so he's like, yes, I really like want to get married, I just can't do it yet. But then like a few weeks later, we'd already had this trip, this like little weekend trip. He went I'd already met his grandpa a couple times before, but we were visiting his grandpa Dalton, who's very close to him, and his grandpa Dalton like was, I only ended up knowing him for a few years because he passed from cancer, but it was such an honor to know him, and he really truly was like more of a grandpa in those 3 years than what I'd ever experienced from my grandparent figures, you know, all growing up. And it wasn't that I had bad grandparents, but he was just so kind and like treated me like a granddaughter. Like that's the thing, you know, like you know how grandparents like spoil their grandkids and will do anything. Like he did that for me. Like he's so humble.
You got married on the
land. So he lived on the hill, and that his grandma had found this 40-acre hill, and that, you know, back in the day, this little Ukrainian woman comes up. I didn't get to personally meet her, but comes up and she's like, I am buying these 40 acres for $10,000. That's the deal. That's what's happening. And like she was known to be a talker and a dealer, so she got these 40 acres, and this 40-acre hill was like a huge thing for my husband Caleb, and like all of his siblings and cousins. Like they would just run it all summer. And so and he ended up asking me, surprised me. And we got engaged on the hill. So we have the tree and it splits, and our kids have been like, we've gotten to take our kids up the hill. The property had to be sold. Like, it's heartbreaking, but the people that bought it let us like still visit and see it. Yeah,
so much
yeah.
generations.
Yeah.
Like reminds us why we have families.
Right. I know. And like, then you get to see your kid. Like hopefully our kids will get to like go there someday with it. This is special, but
Missing family right now.
yeah. This is how it kind of started. Like I think it's because I'm sure you've been away from your husband.
Yeah, I've been
Or
away.
is it husband or partner?
Husband. Yeah, I've been taking some vacation.
But you have your phone, right? So like
yes, you can
that's
check
like
in
the
with them.
oddest. Like you can't.
And,
Like they're your whole world.
and I'm, this is like a really cool experience, and I'm really excited that we get to kind of share it with them too.
Yeah. Yeah. But dang, it's hard.
It is, and like I think as parents we have to like play the team game, right?
Yeah.
So we have to sacrifice so much for our family, and it's different out here playing it individual.
Well, it's so weird when so much of what you do revolves around caring for your kids,
Yes.
working together with your family, and here it's so odd to like, I'm only caring for myself.
Yeah.
But I do like that aspect of the game, because it's like I get to remember like who am I kind of on my own.
Yes.
And like what are my insecurities, where are the areas of growth, and like hopefully I can take that back home and model the lessons I've learned for my kids. But it is so weird to just not even just like see their faces, or like I want to know all the funny little things they've said.
Yeah.
And I just miss my husband.
I know, just to get that hug from someone you love.
No, that's not gonna stab you in the back. And it is my daughter's birthday today. She just turned 4. So
Oh my God.
a little mama guilt, but we'll celebrate.
Yes.
Yeah.
they'll understand.
Yeah. Oh, it's so weird. Having like a normal conversation.
It's
like
nice,
all that.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a good.
Unexpectedly nice. I
Yeah.
love it.
All because of my drenched sleeping bag. All right.
So we'll go back.
So that was a scene that Casey wanted to have an episode, but just didn't have time or space to put it in. So he gave us the ability to show it here live to our 2 guests today. So Rachel, Matt, thank you so much.
Gosh, thank you. Thank you for showing that, and thank you, Casey, for making that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Casey. It's so funny. In the moment, Matt and I both looked at each other. We knew, but that was just a special moment.
Well, Rachel, Casey has one more surprise for you. So as there were bounties in our season, it's only fitting that there be bounty posters.
What?
And so Casey has drawn a bounty poster anime style for you.
No
So let me
way.
go ahead and share my screen again. This is the Queen of Hearts, Rachel Rao, $23 million key bounty poster.
I'm obsessed.
Oh my God.
Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see Rachel in all her glory.
Oh my gosh. I am so cool.
So this is why we play Surviving Bloomington, for Casey's art. So let's be honest.
Yes.
Through tragedy, we had the luck of having an episode where it was half of Casey's art, and here we have the bounty poster for the Queen of Hearts herself, Rachel Rao. Again, Congratulations, Rachel, on your victory.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Oh my word. I cannot believe that. How does one person have so much talent? That can be an episode for another day.
Yeah, Casey's hoarding it all, and we're just the recipients of his generosity.
I cannot fathom it. I cannot fathom the amount of talent in one person that is Casey. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I imagine Casey will send this your way quite shortly.
I hope so, because I'm gonna frame it.
Oh, this is fantastic.
So my kids know who's boss.
The most important thing right there.
Yeah.
Just don't let them cash in on the bounty, Rachel. Don't let them vote you out.
Oh no, they won't.
I mean, that'd be enough hidden media idols for the rest of their life in every game they play. It'd be absurd.
Oh my word. That is so cool.
All right. Well, I think to wrap us up, I think there's a question that I like to ask in these podcasts to each of the guests. And I'll start actually by asking Steven, not to put the three of you on the spot too much.
Oh, wait, so I'm the guest?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be the guest after I'll receive the question as well. Steven, would you play again?
I would definitely play again. I would do a lot of things differently. I would wear shoes that weren't falling apart. I would make sure I was in better health, and I think this game taught me a lot. And I also think the game really, the redemption was such a bright experience to the whole adventure. It's just like you have these games, you're beating all these people, but you're also like there's this struggle and strife of who are we going to vote out, how are we making alliances, and I mean we just saw this moment between Matt and Rachel, and like you have those, but those sometimes can be few and far between. But then like redemption, it's just you're there with people from all walks of life. And yes, the game's ongoing, but you're in this weird liminal phase, and there was just so many great moments that came out of that. But no, my plan would not be voted out again, but it's knowing that the game isn't over per se, and there's still more to have and more to enjoy. So yes.
Rachel?
I don't know. I think it would, if there was another, where people could come back and play, it would be hard for me to tell Casey no. I just love the way he runs things and how he really cares for the well-being of each individual, and just the genuine love that he has for the game and for Bloomington. I'd probably come back if he asked.
But we know there'd be a list of demands. Number 1, I was promised tents. Number 2, I was promised yes. with my tent.
This time Rachel's gonna be like air mattress only.
I demand pizza delivered every night.
If it rains, I'm out.
Oh yeah.
Matt?
Like relationships, timing would matter. I think right now, I don't think my heart could handle it. Just right. I mean, I don't know. It's a really, like, I take things to heart a lot, and I can separate it, but it's just a lot. But that there might become a point in my life where I feel like I need it, or there's a mission behind it, or a theme that I'm like, okay, this is the right time. So, TBD.
Drew, I think I might know your answer, but Drew, would you come back and play Surviving Bloomington?
I think like Rachel, it would be very difficult to say no to KC. Having played in season 6 and then been on production for season 7, I find both sides of the camera equally rewarding. I think in order for me to say yes to playing again, I would have to do a lot more personal reflection. I think rewatching this season and doing the podcasts has taught me a lot about how I'm perceived by other people and how I read to other people. And I think without me fully reflecting on that and being prepared to, see that again, I think it would be a really difficult journey for me. I'm also kind of in the camp of like, I feel like I've shown kind of what I have to offer, and the perception of me coming into a second season, I think would be really rough on me. So I actually don't really have an answer to that. I think that's probably surprising to you, Stephen, based on how you phrased the question.
Well, I think let's pretend Casey operates like he has in the past. Let's say season 10 will be the All-Star season, right?
Sure.
That is 3+ years away in the future, right?
Yeah.
And that's then so that I think I'm gonna guesstimate that would likely provide some time and also provide a buffer of seasons and other players and other things going on that you would feel more comfortable walking into a season that is a returning season without feeling like all eyes are on me.
Yeah, I think as long as I had time to do that personal reflection and really dig into like, this is how people see you, this is how people perceive you, and this is how you operate, and you got to calm down a little bit, bud. That kind of thing.
Well, I think
I would probably have a hard time saying no. The other thing is, like I was saying, I found season 7 being on production to be extremely rewarding in a completely different way than being on the cast. So I'm content until I have to think about it. I'm content being on production. When I have to think about it, I'll do the reflecting then.
I'll pencil to my schedule.
Yeah.
As we wrap up here, Rachel, Matt, Drew, is there anything you all want to shout out that y'all are involved in or doing this summer? Any games you want to spotlight? Matt, I know you have had your hands involved in some things already this summer.
Yeah, I want to produce down in Texas in 2025. So I'm trying to work production on several projects throughout the coming months so I can do something nice down here in Texas and try to make it the third coast of LRGs. That's my goal. So working production on a few things. Yeah.
More news to come in the near future. Rachel, I know last year you helped host the part of Ohio Mole. Will you be part of that game again at all?
Yes, next weekend.
Oh, okay, it's coming.
Tim Holiday, Tim does everything. He's the mastermind. He just gives me a script and I show up and be a pretty face and read it. And so I don't want to take any credit really, but he does an amazing job. And if you have not watched the latest season of The Mole Ohio, you want to tune in and then be watching for the next season when he produces it. He is such a great guy. Another person that he loves the mole and he loves that community, and it's awesome.
Drew, with the season being wrapped up, podcasting over, how will you fill your time?
It's gonna be rough, Steve. I'm not gonna lie. I literally multiple times a day already. I'm like stoked for this is so weird. Actually, this is kind of like, this shows you how, let's say, not normal I am. I had a dream last night about season 7 episodes coming out. Like, it's like that important in my like priority in my brain. I know next year the plan is for me and Steven once again to head up the podcast for season 7. Hopefully we can get some kind of like cast analysis going on with some other former players that I can kind of host that. Let Steven be involved in the draft, not knowing what happened with season 7, but I'm looking forward to that, seeing how else I can support KC moving forward into that. But otherwise, my eyes are open. If you want me to, whatever, I'll watch your games. Don't plan on playing anything anytime soon. I'm on break. I'm on hiatus. I'm not retired, but no, seriously, I am. Yeah, I have not played anything since like August of last year, and don't intend to until next summer at least. Would love to play some sort of the mole game. Actually, that'd be fun. Not have to worry about voting people out or being voted out. But yeah, Steven, what's going on with you?
So I am currently in the middle of Surviving Reelfoot Season 12, the Decennium deep dive coverage of the season, interviewing the players. I've done 5 interviews. I did a almost 3.5-hour interview with the winner you can check out. And there will be more interviews to come in the near future because this is my life. All deep dive interviews all day, every day. And so you can find them here in the Live Reality Game podcast. If you're interested, to my understanding, there should be episodes for Surviving Reelfoot out maybe in the fall, maybe in the winter. Episodes are hard. Casey can attest to that. And speaking of Casey, as we wrap up here, let's give Casey some well-deserved applause, shout out everything, flowers for putting this game on, for bringing us together. None of this would be there without him, for giving us these fantastic episodes and tributes really to the games and the people here. Thank you so much, Casey. I don't know how much more I can add to any of that.
Absolutely. All props to Casey.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for Casey making these episodes. This has been the end of the Surviving Bloomington Order vs. Chaos podcast coverage. This is not the end of the saga for Drew and I. You can expect to see us again probably next January, December, January.
Whenever Casey is able to get the product to meeting the level or surpassing it, we will be there, whether it be next week or a year from now.
As soon as you say product, I'm kind of thinking now in drug language that like, we need our fix, Casey. We need it now.
Oh, okay. I thought that was going somewhere different. Yes, we need it now. Yes. Yeah, we will definitely be around. I cannot understate how excited I am for season 7. And we'll have Rachel and Matt around to talk season 7 as well.
You can't escape us.
Rachel, we definitely have to get you in on the cast draft and cast analysis as the outgoing winner. Matt, you were with me on production, so I'm sure you have some insight in some behind-the-scenes stuff. So, yeah, we'll definitely have a lot to talk about when that time arises.
Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for spending this past time with us, and hope you all have a great rest of your day.